Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
The last track, I think I only blinked once. I skipped lunch. Blinked twice. Christ, shut your eyes. Now open wide. Fascists took the nation and inflation took a supersize. It's sad to say your teachers couldn't quite make the ends collide. But now you'll probably get to see them on the weekends doing Uber drives. Say lube it with a little oil. One, it tastes expensive too. You'd be surprised how well it helps you open up your throat so you consume the lie of human rights that was sold to you by suits and ties, designer scents on plastic men with patient fangs and ancient vice. You know, the kind of greed that makes a person lose the sight of morals, so it's easier to sleep at night. It's easier to ease their minds and pick a foreign people we could demonize. If you take a sec to sink into how war criminals think, you'll know you'd never want to see inside. If every man's an open book to look within, theirs are bound in human skin and not designed for human eyes. They are wearing human skin, but they can simply not be humanized. They aren't worth the lowest of the poor they swore to crucify. Holy sweet Geneva, there's a mass grave full of dead believers you called the police on cause you don't believe in squatters' rights. You believe the sanctity of human life is relative to human worth in terms of work and dollar signs. So listen when I say you need to find the light of day before it's too late to apologize. Like holy sweet Geneva, here's a mass grave you can colonize. Because you seem to love to talk about the spirit of America. But if you saw the spirit of this land's supposed character, I think that you'd be calling ICE. And I also think the actual America is truly represented by the call to ICE. Is represented best by the descendants of some immigrants bitching about the immigrants, snitching on some immigrants, then playing dumb and innocent like good little Christians when their neighbors get deported. Until they're screaming at the store that they waited 20 minutes more because the staff was short. Because some ordinary bigot started waging war on immigrants. And honey, we'll just keep deporting because like your first vote at each election since, it turned out that the man you are supporting ended up to just be twice the fucking bigot as the bigot that he wins against. But I was not among the herd. A single word from Biden stirred a tingle in the cynic's sense. I knew that a vote for Joe was more like Reagan 2.0. I could smell that sarin smoke that choked around the river bend, and so I spoke about a living end, about an anchor thrown to drowning men, a democratic president, a country never found again. A man who marinated in the blood this land was founded in. A crime bill that contains sufficient lethal ends to drown us in. All written by a man who wears a crown of sins, who currently is sleeping in a bed of sins. And it's no wonder those who truly understand the meaning of democracy are not too keen to let us in. It's no wonder other countries can't conceive of skipping meals or missing rent or being on the streets because you can't afford your medicine. That's uniquely American. And Joe has proved to be the most disturbingly American of presidents. I shiver when I think of what's to come if he's the precedent. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all and just how I remembered it. It's a wonder I can even function still to process all the rhymes through all the resonance. Bless my heart, I'm liminally reticent, standing on a threshold of bone, ash, and sediment, near a faded marker claiming this to be the grave of all my sentiments, exactly where I left them all, and just how I remembered it.
Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust? Wait, so if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Fuck.
So if you don't trust the CIA or you don't trust like our institutions, then what do you trust?
Last stand, and I came to deliver. Been called a Clinton operative, a Russian, and a grifter. By libs, a washing student debt, proud to be an intern, sucking up to pigs who get a tax cut in the midterms. You cut the ties but never heal the wrist burns. Capitalist shackles wrap and penetrate like ringworms around the necks of those whose deaths will not affect the king's purse or the coffers of the company the king serves, who manufacture mandated tinctures. Their safety data hanging from a fixture, half a mile skyward, just dangling from the rafters. My grift is sobbing till I'm cackling with laughter. I guess I would have made a decent actor. I'd be great at crying on command until they cut plus 40 minutes after. When the director waves a hand, it ain't a rap, it's now a legal matter. Honey, my grift is weeping on a mic until I'm hacking up airstrike verses like it's bombs away and batter up. Swinging on these bigots, they keep killing us to fatten up. Kill the switch, eat the rich, I think they're finally fat enough. Grab your knife and fork, the world is yours, just say you've had enough. And if you're comfy, you could go ahead and laugh it up. Tell me how the most important vote I'll ever cast is like the choosing of a bus, in that it might not take you anywhere you want, but no one can deny the fact the bus is now no longer where it was. And that's the kind of progress we should celebrate and trust. Spoken like a kid who never took a bus. Spoken like a piece of shit that used some cash to mask his stink and truly thinks he's one of us.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everyone. We're back. It's Tuesday night. It's time for another Indie News Now Live. I've got a whole lineup of stuff to show and more video today than usual, which is good because we get to sit and it's like the substitute teacher getting to watch a video, and we're just going to run the VCR. That just shows how old I am. They wheel in the cart with the TV on the top and the video cassette player, or you plug it in and you call the AV department and they have to run it, and that's where I used to work. Anyway, what's up, Fred? What's up, Angel? What's up, Sean the Accord Lord? Yeah, you remember those days. See, Angel's old enough. Angel remembers. The no pants, well, I am wearing shorts, so technically you are correct. I am not wearing pants. I'm wearing shorts, and I'm wearing my INN t-shirt at the Indie News shop. My beautiful Big Frog t-shirt. We're going to talk about the Big Frog store later. And we're going to talk about, holy crap, there was a great declassified UK article this week about illegally resettling Brits in the West Bank, and an organization that's doing that, and that they're not supposed to be doing that. Wait, what? Did I not turn on? I'm a fool. We got to welcome Substack. Let's wait a minute and let's see. Substack joining. Hi, everyone. Okay, we're live on Substack too. Okay, so Declassified put out an expose investigation where they were looking at an organization that recruits people to make Aliyah, which means Jews to live in Israel, and help them resettle. And they exposed that this organization was actually offering to help people resettle in the West Bank, which is illegal. That's crazy. So that's number one. We're going to talk about Lebanon, because Lebanon is getting leveled to the ground, block by block, the way they did it to Gaza, sadly, and nobody seems to be stopping it. All right. We're going to also talk about what Israel and, of course, the U.S. are doing to Iran and to their civilian healthcare and education centers. We're going to have a lightning round. We'll talk a little bit about the GoFundMe stuff. And we got a couple of new announcements when it comes with regard to Shanda and what's happening post everything there. It's just been a tough week for everybody. I know. But we have a lot of stories to get to, and we got the news. So before we get started, I'm going to ask everyone to support independent media like those wonderful people there already have. Some of you in chat, most of you in chat already have. We got a new subscriber last week over at IndieNewsNow.com monthly, JH Scott 6. Thank you. Really appreciate that. That makes all the difference. Because we are solely user funded here. We take no advertising revenue and we don't take any sponsor money. And like Angel says, Angel does a show Friday night and Saturday night on the network. Thanks everyone for supporting INN. The ways to do that are up there on that board. Cash App is the easiest way to do it. If you do co-fee.com, it'll actually pop something up on screen and it'll make a sound here. It'll do the who are these people. PayPal.me/IndieNewsNetwork and Patreon.com/IndieNewsNetwork. Then the show is called IndieNewsNow.com, IndieNewsNow Live, because it's a website called IndieNewsNow.com. That's a news aggregator. It's not just our stuff. It's as much independent media as I trust and have vetted and believe in. And that runs 24/7, completely ad-free, completely free to you, linking to directly the site that posts the article. And then we've got our Substacks. We're live over at IndieMediaToday.com. Hello to everybody checking in over there. And at INNNewsletter.com, which is for the network that we publish we publish a weekly update every Friday. And we have several different podcasts also. And once in a while, an original article that gets posted there. Not very often, but once in a while. And then the weekly update is a summary of everything that happens throughout the network throughout the entire week. This past week, there were 31 things. So if you haven't checked out anything at INN, the best place to go is INNNewsletter.com and look at a Friday afternoon update, and you'll see everything that the network puts out within a week. So that's my little soapbox. But thank you, everyone. Appreciate you all being here. I do have a lot to cover. We're going to talk about Oracle tonight. And I think that a lot of people have kind of paid attention a little bit at a high level to the Ellison family, but I don't know if anybody's really done a deep dive around me that I've seen lately on Larry Ellison, on who he's connected to, on what he's up to, on what his goals and motivations are. Remember that his son David is the guy that now runs and owns Skydance, basically with his money, allegedly, and they just bought Warner Brothers and they bought the Free Press and they own CBS and Paramount and all these different properties, media properties. But they also own, Larry Ellison got rich owning Oracle, which is the backbone of the CIA, the software that was built around the CIA. Now, I published an article last week, a week and a half ago, where I shouted out a couple of new creators that I don't know well, but this is one of them. I'm going to show a couple of videos and articles tonight that they had published, and she has been talking about Oracle. Her name is Andrea. She's with the Drey Dossier. All right. So I don't know how many of you have heard of her. I have recently stumbled onto her. I've been watching her on Instagram. She also has a Substack. And this was actually an article she published back in September. One of the first, because I wanted to go back and where did this person come from? And how did they show up in my environment? And it's because they talk about a lot of the things that we do with regard to technocracy, panopticon, and control at the highest levels. I found this video that she had published and an article she had written about Larry Ellison back in September. So I want to show this 5-minute video real quick. And then I brought a longer video that she recently published about Larry Ellison and where she thinks all of this is going, and that he is actually one of the main connectors for all of this Board of Peace stuff and what this Board of Peace stuff really is leading towards. So I found it fascinating. I want to share that with you. So we're going to watch that now. Let me blow this up and go full screen here. Okay. Unmute. Go.
So I just learned that I've been working for someone for years and I had no idea. Like, honestly, it is disconcerting. It is terrifying to think about how much power this person has had over my life, and I just had no clue. I'm talking about, like, every morning when I wake up and I get on my phone, I'm working for him. Anytime I go to the doctor's office, I'm apparently working for him. Anytime I go for a goddamn walk, I'm working for him. And if you're watching this video on TikTok, then you're working for him too. That's right, babe, you are clocked in. And while this job doesn't pay you, it will cost you. So this is the first video of what is likely to be many in a series, because there's no way I can cover just how creepy this guy is in one video. But more importantly, the entire series, the full story, is going to be on my Substack. And that's really important because given the climate on TikTok, I don't imagine that these videos are going to be kept up long, because what I'm about to tell you is going to piss a lot of powerful people off. So let's meet your boss, Larry Ellison. He's a spry 81 years old, worth $140 billion, and calling him a tech billionaire would be like calling a bomb maker a mechanic. I promise I am not being dramatic when I say that this man is a systems megalomaniac who is orchestrating the most audacious consolidation of power in modern history. Our story starts in 1977 at a high-powered security facility in Langley, Virginia, the CIA headquarters. They needed a system that could answer any question about anyone at any time, where they went, who they talked to, what they did, and the project codename became Oracle. See, for someone like Ellison, this project was more than just a contract. It was a revelation. I mean, it changed everything, because it was during this time that he discovered the most valuable product that you can sell to power: certainty. And follow the money here, right? Because uncertainty is not just something that governments fear, it's something that they will clearly pay billions of dollars to eliminate. When chaos erupts, like it is today, when markets panic, when society feels just generally unstable, who benefits? Who gets the contracts? The man who promises to bring order through data. And this brings us to the next part of our story, 9/11. Yes, while the rest of America was reeling from the attacks, Ellison saw an opportunity. He immediately started pushing for this idea of a national ID system, where he was arguing that if we just had a better system that could identify everybody and track them, then we could prevent further attacks. Now, the government didn't really bite back then, but he did learn something crucial in that moment, which is that crisis creates a demand for his product. And now he's scaling up in ways that would make George Orwell himself blush. You remember when he bought Paramount Pictures for his son? You know, the one that ended in a quid pro quo, and they fired Stephen Colbert in favor of Trump advertising space and got rid of all DEI initiatives and hired an ombudsman, not because Larry's into like the surveillance state or anything, but because this is good business acumen, right? These are all rational business decisions, right? Now, breaking news, his next target seems to be going after Warner Brothers Discovery for their IP library. You know, not even 5 weeks after they closed on Paramount Pictures and laid off 20,000 people. So when I say that this guy's a megalomaniac, I mean it. He bought 98% of the island of Lanai so that he could bioengineer this genetically modified lettuce or something like that. He's working on surveillance systems with the Air Force in Israel. He's a majority owner of TikTok's data in the US, and he's largely the reason why the app is changing its community guidelines right now, you know, to favor his and his buddies' political needs. I mean, he is our bridge to China. He's the reason that China does business with us. He does so much business with China. He helped get NVIDIA's chip over to China. I mean,
this is
they
interesting.
love him over there. Why wouldn't they? He built the surveillance systems for their government. But the thing that gets me is, like, when is it enough? You know, when you have $140 billion to your name and your company is scaling larger and larger every day, then money becomes more of a scorecard than it does a number in your bank account. What is left to get? Because I have to believe he's not just looking to make more money, right? That's not why he's continuing to do this at 81 years old. And from everything that I've read about him, the only genuine passion that's consistent throughout his life is surveillance capitalism. The way I see it is that he's probably playing for history now, you know? He wants to be remembered as the man who solved society by treating humanity as a system that was broken and needed to be optimized. So maybe the question isn't what is Larry Ellison building, but it's what kind of world his machine is going to create for us. I'm going to try to put out part 2 later today, where we're going to walk through the Chinese prototype that he built and how it was the beta test for the American control system. Because once you see what's already operational, I think you'll truly understand why we may be the last generation to live as free people. We gotta move fast here. We are running out of time. The machine is awakening. The robots are here. That was not a good Melania.
No, that was not a good Melania. So again, there's an article that accompanies this. What's the ultimate ambition? Well, I think a lot of it, and I think she's either naive to it at this point, which is, again, I find it interesting. September 14th. This was right after Charlie Kirk got shot, by the way. What's the ultimate ambition? I think it's Israel. He's the single largest donor to the IDF. So the thing about China I found really interesting. This is an old picture. The story doesn't start again in Hollywood or Silicon Valley, but in Langley, Virginia. Software Development Labs won its first major contract. The project's code name was Oracle. So he built software for the CIA. Before it became a public company, it was a proprietary tool for the surveillance state. Correct. All right. Foundational experience, not in building products, but in constructing systems to impose order on chaos for the world's most powerful intelligence agency. So this is an interesting article. This was written last September. She did another video the other day about the Board of Peace and about Larry Ellison's role both on the Board of Peace and about what the Board of Peace, their goal actually might ultimately be. And I wanted to bring that video. Now, this one's longer, and I'll probably stop it one or two times in between. But I'll start. And again, this is not a transcript of the entire video, but there is a lot of citing and sourcing. She does try to summarize basically what there are, the three components that she sees as problematic. And this is in a multiple video series. But this was published yesterday. All right. If you've been following this newsletter, you know I spent a long time tracking Oracle through nearly every corner of American infrastructure, from the Cerner rebuild to the Stargate contracts to the Warner Brothers merger. But what's been breaking over the last 24 hours is the international version of that same story. Once you see the shape, the news starts looking like stops looking like a collection of crises and starts looking like a sequence. And I want you to pay attention to what she's saying here, because it's really important. All right, let's play this one. Unmute.
I was finishing research for a different video tonight when the news broke. Trump announced that the U.S. Navy is going to blockade the Strait of Hormuz starting Monday morning at 10 a.m. Peace talks with Iran have just collapsed, and Israel is bombing Lebanon village by village with a stated goal of demolishing every town along the border. And yesterday, Apple seemed to have removed the names of nearly every town and village in Lebanon from its maps. Meanwhile, Google and every other mapping service still shows them normally. So what do you know that we don't know, Apple? And so while the video I was going to make tonight was going to be about Trump's Board of Peace and breaking all of that down, I've decided to pivot a little bit, because all of these things have to do with one another. And once you see how, I think the news is going to stop looking like a bunch of separate crises and start looking like one story. One very complete, very scary, albeit, story. And if you've been following any of my Oracle coverage, the Warner Brothers merger, the Stargate contracts, the Cerner rebuild, then you already know the domestic version of this story. Well, tonight is the international version. The same company, the same man, just new territory. Hi, I'm Drey, and this is the Drey Dossier, and I am tired. There's a lot going on right now, and every time I think for a second that there's no way that Larry Ellison and Oracle can be at the center of whatever problem is going on in the world, they prove me wrong time and time again. So strap in, because we're about to go down a very, very interesting lane. And if you'd like a more in-depth version of this story, then you can go over to my Substack, the Drey Dossier. There will be an article paired with this video, and at the bottom of that article will be all of my sources cited and linked, so you can do some of this research for yourself if you'd like to check my work. All right, let's unpack this Board of Peace, shall we? We've all heard of Trump's Board of Peace. You probably know the basic pitch. So Trump set up an international body to oversee Gaza's reconstruction after the war, and the UN endorsed it, and 26 countries signed on, and on paper, it looked like diplomacy. But this Board of Peace, as I've been investigating it, has a lot more going on than what meets the eye. And I think it's one of the most important stories that we should be tracking right now, because of who is really behind it, because of how it's written, and because of where it's already spreading. And so here's what I want you to hold on to from the beginning of this, okay? Gaza is not the goal of this Board of Peace. Gaza is where the board was built, and Gaza is the crisis that made it politically possible to build something like this in the first place. But the reconstruction of Gaza in any form, whether it becomes a rebuilt city or a techno-Riviera or nothing at all, is not really the point. Gaza is but one node in a much, much larger map. And while Donald Trump may be the head chair of this Board of Peace, he is not the man at the center of it. It's a billionaire named Larry Ellison. Let me walk you through how I got here. In January of 2026, the UN Security Council voted to endorse a new international body called the Board of Peace. And they were told this was going to be a multilateral oversight mechanism for Gaza's reconstruction, chaired by Trump, signed onto by 26 other countries, and designed to administer humanitarian aid to support Gaza's eventual transition back to Palestinian governance. I mean, this is what every major outlet reported, and this is what the Security Council thought that they were endorsing. But here's the thing. They voted on the concept before the actual charter was public knowledge, which means that they endorsed the idea of the board before anyone outside of a very small circle had seen the actual rules. And the procedural question of how the UN ended up endorsing a document that they had not read is its own scandal, and one I'll come back to in another video. But for tonight, what matters is what happened when the charter finally did surface, because two things became very clear. The first is that the charter names Donald Trump personally, not as the President of the United States, but Donald Trump, the private citizen, as the lifetime chairman, which means when he leaves the White House in January of 2029, he keeps the chair. And the rules that prevent a sitting president from profiting from foreign governments stops applying the moment that he leaves office.
That is insane. So he goes, so, you know, a couple of people, I had heard for a while this prediction that Trump was going to end up becoming the king of Israel. And I was like, get that. How not gonna, this is how they're going to do it. All right. This is how they're going to do it. He's got lifetime chairmanship of the Board of Peace, but it gets worse. Watch this.
In fact, JP Morgan is currently in negotiations to set up a private account for this organization accessible by Trump personally. And countries, if they want to have a permanent seat at this table, have to pay $1 billion to the Board of Peace. So essentially, Trump personally, for life, gets control of a multi-billion-dollar international organization with no auditing, no oversight, long after he leaves the White House. Now, this is why I don't buy into the idea that he's never leaving the White House. I don't think he has any interest in staying in the White House past 2029. Because think about it, what's waiting for him on the other side is being the emperor of the Middle East. Now, the second thing that has become clear is Gaza's role in this board, or more accurately, its absence from it. While the board was pitched as a Gaza reconstruction plan, the charter does not mention Gaza. The word does not appear in the document one time. Instead,
also crazy.
And this is really important, the charter gives the board authority to operate, and I quote, in any region affected or threatened by conflict, which means anywhere in the world with no geographic limit. Now that is what you call a blank check of power. I mean, think about it. That means any territory currently at war, or any territory recovering from a war, or any territory that someone in power decides is threatened by a war can just be pulled under the Board of Peace's jurisdiction. So the charter was written to be portable, and the Security Council never voted on that because the Security Council was told that this was about Gaza. So the question is why? Like, why would they remove the word Gaza from a document that the entire world was told was about Gaza? Like, why build a vehicle with no geographic limits when the stated mission was just one specific place? Because Gaza, as I see it, was the opening move. I mean, the Security Council could not say no to a body framed as Gaza reconstruction, and the political cover of humanitarian crisis made it possible to build something that would never be thinkable under any other circumstances than this. And that's the important part, right? I mean, once the body gets built and once it exists, it can be pointed anywhere. Now, Trump, as we stated, chairs the board. He is the face of it. He is the lifetime chairman with a personal control over billions and billions of dollars. You know, that being said, let's be honest about what Trump does and does not do. Because putting together this kind of apparatus, right, this kind of board requires a lot of technical thinking. And Trump does not architect systems like this. I mean, he barely architects buildings, you know? Trump doesn't write charters. He doesn't build 20-year infrastructure plays across multiple countries. That is not his skill set. You know what I'm saying? His skill set is more performing the role that needs to be performed, if that makes sense. Yeah, you know, he's the puppet on strings. Just pay him a bunch of money and then he'll say whatever you want him to say. And in this case, the role is being the name on the door, and by being the president of the United States, it gives the role some sense of authority, right? The board now has a legitimacy. So if Trump is the front man, then the question is, who built this thing? And when you look at the sum of its parts, I think its answer becomes pretty clear. So the executive board has 9 voting members. The January 16th White House announcement, though, named 7, which means that 2 names were concealed and only surfaced 10 days later through leaked documents obtained by Dropsite News. And I'm not going to walk you through all 9 people of this board tonight. I'll do a full breakdown of every member in another video, but tonight I want to focus on the names that connect directly to this news that is breaking right now. And first up is none other than Jared Kushner. See, Kushner is the most connected figure on this board. He is not just Trump's son-in-law, and he's not just the architect of the Abraham Accords. See, he is the bridge between 3 separate networks that converge on this Board of Peace, and you need to see all 3 in order to understand why he matters so greatly. The first network is Gulf Sovereign Wealth, because one day after Kushner left the White House in 2021, I'm not kidding, one day, he launched a private investment fund called Affinity Partners. And within months, Saudi Arabia's public investment fund invested over $2 billion in it, despite their own financial advisors rating the fund as unsatisfactory in all aspects. And it's largely because that money was not a bet on Kushner's investment skill set. It was a bet on what he would be able to do the next time his family was in power. And what do you know, the UAE and Qatar followed closely behind. And a Senate Finance Committee investigation led by Senator Ron Wyden later concluded that the fund is likely part of a compensation scheme involving U.S. political figures designed to circumvent foreign agent registration laws. Now Kushner sits on the Board of Peace negotiating the future of Gaza, while the government's funding his private firms sit across the table from him as member states. And the second network he's connected to is the Israeli Business Network. Network, and this is where the actual reconstruction plans come from. You know, the Mediterranean Riviera concept and the $50 billion coastline development that Kushner brought to Davos? Yeah, all of that was designed by an Israeli billionaire named Yakir Gabay. And Gabay has been a close personal friend of Kushner's for over a decade, and he began drafting the plan within days of October 7th, by the way. Oh, and he's also an executive on the Board of Peace. So, which brings us to the third network that no one is really talking about when it comes to the Kushners, and it's the one that matters most. You see, Kushner's relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu is not a political alliance that started when Jared became a White House advisor. Oh no, it is a multi-decade family patronage relationship that predates Trump's entire political career. When Netanyahu would visit New Jersey in the 1990s, you know, before his first term as Israeli prime minister, he stayed at the Kushner family home in Livingston and slept in Jared Kushner's childhood bedroom. And Jared, a mere teenager at the time, would then move into the basement for the night whenever Benjamin Netanyahu would come and stay in his, what I can only assume is a race car bed. Why was Benjamin Netanyahu in Jared Kushner's childhood bedroom? Because Charles Kushner, Jared's father, was paying Benjamin Netanyahu hundreds of thousands of dollars in speaking fees. See, that fun fact surfaced publicly when Charles's brother, Murray Kushner, sued him for misusing the family company funds, and part of the alleged misuse was the money that he paid to Benjamin Netanyahu. Oh, and this is interesting. In 2007, a leaked list of millionaires that Netanyahu had compiled of his potential political donors listed Charles Kushner as a top-tier donor alongside Sheldon Adelson. Meanwhile, Donald Trump appeared on the same list in the bottom tier, rated as least likely to give money. Well, I mean, you can't give money when you're cash broke, can you? And so when you see Jared Kushner sitting on this board of peace negotiating for the future of Gaza, he's not just representing the Trump administration's policy. He's not even just representing his family of Trump. He's representing this multi-decade family financial and political relationship with the Prime Minister of Israel, which predates his marriage to Ivanka, predates Trump's political career, and predates any of the roles that we now associate with him. Which is why Netanyahu isn't on the board of peace. He doesn't need to be. He's got his angles covered. The Israeli interest.
See, that reminds me of Peter Thiel. People talk about Peter Thiel with Rumble. Peter Thiel doesn't need to be on have anything to do with Rumble because he's got his angles covered when it comes to Rumble. Between Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Pavlovsky and J.D. Vance and Dan Bongino, he does not need to actually have any direct ownership to still have direct control over it. That's what she's talking about with Netanyahu in regard to this Board of Peace, which is even more frightening because she's going to talk in a few minutes here about how this Board of Peace is not going to just limit itself to Gaza.
On this board runs through the Kushner family's private financial network through a relationship that started in a New Jersey bedroom in the 1990s and has never ended. Okay, so next on this board is Marco Rubio. So Rubio is the current Secretary of State and acting National Security Advisor, which is the first person to hold that dual role since Henry Kissinger. And I feel like people don't understand exactly how powerful he is. Like, he's arguably the most powerful foreign policy figure in the US government right now, and he is sitting on this Board of Peace. And to understand his role in this administration and on the Board of Peace, you have to go back to 2015, back when he was still a senator and going to a dinner with Larry Ellison. That's right, in 2015, Larry Ellison had a dinner with Marco Rubio. And after that dinner, Larry Ellison emailed the Israeli UN ambassador, Ron Prosser, and wrote, "Great meeting with Marco Rubio. I set him up to meet with Tony Blair. Marco will be a great friend for Israel." Oh, we love a good crossover episode, don't we? And within weeks of that email, Ellison directed $5 million to Rubio's super PAC. And interestingly enough, those emails came out in a 2024 hack by a group with suspected Iranian ties, and Dropsite News had verified the content before publishing. And those emails tell you everything you need to know. I mean, Ellison told you exactly what he was doing. He was vetting a future senator and connecting him to a former prime minister of the UK. And now, 10 years later, Rubio is in charge of exporting weapons to Israel and is sitting on Trump's Board of Peace right next to Tony Blair. Which brings us to the next cretin on this board, Tony Blair. Now, I've talked a lot about Tony Blair and Larry Ellison's relationship on my channel, but the TLDR is Tony Blair is the former prime minister who, after leaving office, built something called the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change. And since leaving office in 2007, the institute has received over $300 million from Larry Ellison, confirmed from the Ellison's own foundation filings and the institute's own accounts. And that is a lot of money for a think tank, isn't it?
Receipts.
Well, if you want to know what that money actually buys, there is a Lighthouse report investigation with 29 current and former staff sources that is worth reading. Turns out the Blair Institute is essentially the same as Oracle. They found that Blair's Institute employs a dedicated staff member just to manage the Oracle partnership, shares a board member with Oracle, and has been described by former employees as an offshoot of Oracle. They're just hawking Oracle tech across countries around the world. One former staffer even said that the meetings were like being a part of the same organization. They would go on retreats together. So for all intents and purposes, anytime you see Tony Blair or the Blair Institute doing anything ever, you can assume that they're acting on behalf of Oracle. It's essentially seeing Oracle do something. And interesting that Blair's Institute is the organization that wrote the governance blueprint for how Gaza would be administered after the war. The same blueprint that Kushner brought to Davos, the blueprint that the Board of Peace is now implementing. So you mean to tell me that the former prime minister who designed the plan is funded by the same billionaire who introduced him to the Secretary of State 10 years ago? Funny how that works. Which brings me to the name that I keep circling throughout all of this. Larry Ellison. Most people know Larry Ellison as the Oracle billionaire, which, True. You also probably know that he is the largest private donor to the Israeli military in American history. He's given over $26 million to the Friends of the IDF since 2014, including a single $16.5 million donation in 2017 that is the largest gift in the organization's history. And that is the part we have discussed at length. But here is the part that a lot of people don't know. Ellison is not just the largest funder of the Israeli military. His company is the operational backbone of it. According to Open Intel, Oracle holds a 26-year contract to build and operate the IT infrastructure for the IDF's intelligence campus in Negev. For clarity, that is the facility that houses Unit 8200, Israel's Signals, Intelligence, and Cyber Warfare Division, and one of the largest listening bases in the world. That is a 26-year relationship extending into the 2040s between a private American company and the intelligence apparatus of a foreign military. And that's just the tracks as spare parts for F-35s and F-16s, aviation fuel, and mutations inventory. Oracle hosts an AI battlefield management system called Fireweaver that coordinates sensors and weapons on the battlefield in real time, which means that Oracle software is making targeting decisions in the kill chain for Israeli Defense Forces. Oracle's own co-CEO Safra Catz said on the record that the company's commitment to Israel is second to none. And Safra Catz also served herself on the IDF, but that's a story for another time. Oh, and Palantir, let's get into Palantir, because Palantir, which has a formal strategic relationship with Oracle and runs Oracle's cloud, has a permanent desk inside the Civil Military's Coordination Center in southern Israel. The center is now the operational headquarters of the Board of Peace. Because, the same Palantir software that ran battlefield targeting during the war and flattened Gaza now runs aid tracking for the Board of Peace on top of Oracle's cloud. Isn't all of this so funny? It's so funny. So I want to be very clear when I tell you that Larry Ellison is not just funding the IDF. I mean it literally. His company is the IDF. And 6 of the 9 people on the Board of Peace are directly tied to Larry Ellison's network. That's who built it. So I guess the next obvious question is why? If Larry Ellison is the one moving the chess pieces here, then what does he get out of building this Board of Peace? Why does he want to build this Board of Peace? What does he get from funding the IDF like he is? Well, there is a detail from January that I think answers that question. And as far as I can tell, nobody has connected it to this Board of Peace. You see, in January, the same month the Board of Peace launched, Oracle signed a deal with Lebanon to digitalize its entire public administration and train 50,000 civil servants. So think about what that means. Oracle got the Lebanon contract before the bombs hit it. It's the same playbook of what happened in Gaza, except in Gaza, the process is already complete. Oracle's cloud runs the Board of Peace's operations, Palantir is layered on top of Oracle's infrastructure, and the tracks all are laid. And so here's what this pattern looks like, laid out clearly. The infrastructure goes in first, right? The country gets destabilized. Then these old systems that the infrastructure was running on, the ones that weren't Oracle, get destroyed. And on the other side of that destruction, Oracle is already holding the rebuild contract. It's with the Board of Peace. And the tech stack that ran the war is now running the reconstruction. It's a perfect loop. I mean, Lebanon is almost certainly next. The bombs are falling and Oracle is already on the other side waiting. And then there's Iran. Iran is comprised of 90 million people, and Oracle cannot legally touch any of them. US sanctions have made that wall airtight for 30 years. Iran's entire digital infrastructure, its government systems, its bankings, its communications runs on Russian and Chinese platforms. So there is no Oracle in Iran, no contracts, no cloud, no pre-positioning, nothing. They're not allowed to be there. And Iran knows exactly what that means. I mean, they watched the contract go into Lebanon in January. They watched Oracle's infrastructure move into Gaza's reconstruction. I mean, I'm sure Iran is looking at that playbook and then looking at their own country and understanding that the only thing standing between them and that outcome of Oracle being on the other side of some tragedy is this sanctions wall. And 12 days ago, the IRGC struck an Oracle data center in Dubai and named Oracle their #1 military target. Not Google, not Lockheed, not Raytheon, Oracle. Because they know Oracle runs the Israeli military's intelligence campus, its logistics chain, and its battlefield AI. And they also know Oracle is running all of ours, too. And tonight, peace talks with Iran collapsed in Pakistan. And the U.S. delegation was Vice President Vance, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. And Witkoff and Kushner both sit on the Board of Peace. And the detail that's easy to miss in all of this is the fact that the Iranian negotiators had set one condition before the talks could even begin: a ceasefire in Lebanon. They said on the record that the aggression towards Lebanon is aggression towards Iran, and the U.S. refused, the talks collapsed, and the blockade was announced. So Lebanon is not a separate crisis from the Iran talks. Lebanon is the very thing that broke them, because Iran understood what Lebanon was being used for.
Yep.
Leverage. Leverage where Oracle is already implemented. And Trump announced that the Strait of Hormuz blockade begins Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. That's right, 230 oil tankers sitting at the Gulf right now. And look, there's a lot going on with this war, and I don't want to pretend to oversimplify everything into one neat and tidy answer. But what I will say is that the people who built this Board of Peace that benefits from the reconstruction of these countries are the same people who are escalating this war in a country, in a region that Oracle cannot enter. And it is the biggest region in the Middle East that Oracle, I'm very sure, would love to take from China and Russia. And so when this war ends, one of two things will be true. Either the sanctions stay in place and Iran stays closed off to Oracle, or the walls come down. So I guess we'll wait to find out.
Either way, it's not good. It's not going to be good. But I think there's 2 or 3 things that she pointed out there that, again, this is the Drey Dossier over on Substack, dreydossier.substack.com, or the dreydossier.substack.com. She connected the CIA, Oracle, and Israel's systems. All right. So really important that, okay, so Oracle is the backbone now of the IDF and of Unit 8200, as far as software. That's the operating system. They're also the operating system for the CIA. So what that really tells me is that CIA and IDF are literally intertwined and running off of the same platform with the same data by the same guy. And I think a lot of people haven't quite put that together yet. And I think that was one of the best connectors of that I've seen yet. Personal favorite myself, I agree. I like redheads too. Well, I like everyone. No, it's not a Scully fetish, but I have to, she mentioned Drop Site News twice, and she cited Drop Site News, and she's got that silver YouTube thing, and she's very polished, and she knows her stuff backwards, forwards, and everything. Keep your eyes open is all I'm saying. Look, keep an open mind. I like what she had to say. I think it's really intelligent. I've been watching her videos. She's got a lot of information and a lot of data. And where that comes from, I certainly have questions. And how she keeps up with that, she's like an encyclopedia. You can see she's not looking at references and she's not reading a script. This is all coming off the cuff from the top of her head because she knows this material left, right, and sideways. So give this lady a follow, the Drey Dossier.substack.com. Check out the rest of her videos and her articles. So again, what this talks about also is how there was somewhere that talked about Larry Ellison and his history with China, and Oracle software actually is like critical in China's infrastructure as well. So as a guy who's very connected with Trump, who's connected with this Board of Peace, who's connected with rebuilding the software in anywhere that gets bombed and rebuilding the infrastructure for the software, it's really interesting that, one world government type of conspiracy theory, World Economic Forum stuff really starts to, add up. That this is Club of Rome kind of stuff where they're talking about the 10 kingdoms that they actually want to whack this world up into. And is it all going to run on Oracle software with Palantir as the next layer? They're waiting out Putin next. And then they'll start to really balkanize Russia. They've already tried to weaken him with this proxy war for the last 4 years. Keep him occupied. That would be one of China's biggest partners if and when we decide that we're going to really antagonize China. And I don't know when that's going to be, but my guess is, again, we saw the plans for 2027. And that scares the hell out of me, all of this stuff. But I think it's important to know what we're up against, who's manipulating it, what their motivations are, and look 5 steps ahead on the chessboard to see how are things going to play out. All right. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that are right there. Cash App, $ Indie News Network. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. At paypal.me/Indie News Network and patreon.com/Indie News Network for a monthly. And then we've got our website, IndieNewsNow.com. It's the name of the show. It's also a website. You can look up news there. INNnewsletter.com and IndieMediaToday.com are where you can find us over on Substack, and we're live at IndieMediaToday.com right now. So go watch us over there. Seven Sword Mary said that she was having trouble, but I do see that there's like 30 people that have joined the stream tonight over there. So it seems like people are able to get in there and chat. One guy, Joe Creed, said that she was talking too fast at 1.25 speed, but I did want to get through that video a little sooner. It was 18.5 minutes long, and I don't normally play videos of that length. I saw that we do have some Ginger fans here for sure. I love that. Seven Sword is saying that she's got data like Richard Medhurst, right? She's really good. She is very good. When people come with data like that, out of nowhere, my spidey senses tend to tingle a little bit and ask, like, where'd they come from? Where'd they get all this data from? And sometimes it's legit. Sometimes it's fed. Sometimes it's because somebody has access. I don't really know. But yes, she definitely does know her stuff 100%, man. And you know, honeypot. I mean, I saw the word honeypot thrown around. Would it be that out of the realm for that to happen? No. For them to plant somebody like that? No. That's what I said. Keep your head on a swivel. I'm not. It's hard today in today's world to decipher what's real from what's somebody pushing a narrative, from what's somebody pushing misinformation intentionally, to somebody getting it wrong and thinking that they're getting it right legitimately. It's really hard to know what, you know, kind of where everybody stands. And you got to kind of take them at face value and take everything with a grain and realize that this is the internet and that everything on the internet is fake, right? Isn't that like, you know, and it is and it's not, because I'm certainly not fake. I'm doing this. I'm reading these articles. I'm curating this stuff every week. And I've built a reputation and a library over almost 5 years of doing this that people kind of know what they're going to get. And I want to continue to see that out of her. I like what I see so far. And what I see was very good. Although, again, the reference to Dropsite Media and to their stuff, a little concerning to me, because we all know about what Dropsite Media is all about. And I'm not a fan of theirs at all. You like Ginger Snaps. Does that count? Well, it certainly does count. And then the redhead is, though, Natalie Brunel is... She's special, isn't she, though, Monarch? I wonder how we would react if the internet suddenly disappeared. That's a great, that would be a great, like, kind of deep dive of a topic. That's really funny. I don't know. A honeypot has a vagina, that's true, but a honeypot uses her sexual appeal to get you to do and see things a certain way. Well, it can be seductive through video, believe it or not. You know, today people have these parasocial relationships with podcasters and content creator personalities, especially when you get to Instagram and TikTok, where they feel like they know these people. And I've seen that at a tiny, tiny scale, because we're tiny scale. But you know, where people kind of make assumptions, but they don't really know you at all. You know, it's very interesting to see all that. But yes, specifically a honeypot would be thrown at a politician or something to compromise them. But I would guess that her DMs probably have compromising material within them, because she is good looking to the point that people would be my guess that they would offer to do that. Just my guess. Yes, females have been using their sexual wares since time immemorial. That's absolutely the truth. All right. Okay, so my next thing I wanted to get to, this is a great investigation that showed up on this morning. Actually, it's yesterday or this morning over at IndieNewsNow.com. And I'm scrolling the site to look for content. I'm like, oh my God, this is really good. This is a Declassified UK article. Now, Declassified UK is a Indie Media Award honoree. All right, first ballot, 2022, one of the first outlets we looked at. Well, Declassified has been doing great work for years. All right, so this is an investigation they published about people who want to an organization, a charitable organization in the UK, helping British citizens relocate to Israel and what's called Make Aliyah. And they got someone, an anti-Zionist Jew, to go undercover for them and interview with this organization and get them to tell her everything about relocating. Okay, so this article, and again, it's located at declassifieduk.org. All right, an Israeli organization has been caught on camera offering to help British citizens move to an illegal settlement in the West Bank. Declassified can reveal how the group, Shivat Zion, told supporters it would benefit from UK tax subsidies despite staff bragging about awesome settlements. I'm going to play this video. It's worth seeing. Okay, their undercover investigation saw the group's encouragement officer discussing the support it would give the settlers moving to Efrat in the West Bank. You're next to the Arabs, you'll hear their mosques, but apart from this, it's a great living standard. The comments were made during a Zoom call with a Jewish anti-Zionist activist who asked Declassified to secretly film the conversation. What a hero this lady is. All right. In February, the UK government promised to take concrete steps in accordance with international law to counter settlement expansion. Foreign Minister Hamish Falconer said Israel's illegal settlements and decisions designed to further them are a flagrant violation of international law. But Declassified can now reveal how Shivat Zion invited supporters to claim UK gift aid when making donations. They're taking this off their taxes, despite being registered in Israel. It directed donations to a separate charity called UK Touramet Ltd, based near London. So they've got a shell company that makes it very clear that the donations go through the UK Touramet charity, but they explain that it ensures the donations properly reach Shivat Zion. All right, so I'm going to play the video now. It's wild. Again, shout out to Declassified UK.
We're going undercover to expose how Israel is helping British citizens move to illegal settlements in the West Bank.
So you're next to the Arabs, you hear their mosque, the apartments, great living standard.
Efrat is awesome.
To live there, it's a war crime. It's not awesome.
I am really deeply disturbed that this is going on. It needs to stop.
For years, Palestinian families have been forcibly removed from their homes in the West Bank. Those who remain face an environment of oppression, violence, and injustice. But under Israel's current far-right government, the number of settlements has risen by nearly 50%, despite being illegal under international law. Here in the UK, the government claims to respect international law, and it's condemned the illegal settlements. But what if Israel is actively recruiting people from across the UK to go and live in the West Bank? And what if British taxpayers are subsidising it? Well, there was only one way to find out. Okay, let's start by, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so my name's Emily. I'm a Jewish anti-Zionist activist and organizer. I'm from America, but I also have British citizenship. I come from an interfaith family, so my dad is Jewish, my mom is Christian. I grew up with both religions in the household. Judaism is part of my everyday life. I consider myself religious.
Last year, Emily got in touch with Declassified because she wanted to go undercover. She and other Jewish anti-Zionist activists had been to an event in London to research links between the UK and Israel, and what they saw raised concerns. Run by the World Zionist Organization, the event was designed to help British people move to Israel in a process known as Aliyah.
ליהודים באנגליה, ליהודים בצרפת, ליהודים באוסטרליה, ליהודים בקנדה, ליהודים בבלגיה, עלו לארץ ישראל, בואו הביתה.
When they were kind of making the pitch for moving to Israel, how appealing did they make that sound?
Honestly, it was quite terrifying how appealing it was. If I wasn't so steadfast in my anti-Zionism, how easily one could be persuaded to do this.
It's about coming home. It's about coming to Israel. It's about connecting with our heritage.
Among the people Emily met at the event in London was this man, Jonathan Vigney. He works for a group called Shivat Zion, literally Return to Zion, which said it supported a smooth integration into Israeli life.
Shivat Zion is here to guide you through the entire Aliyah process, including pre-Aliyah one-to-one assistance, support after landing, and guidance for a year after arrival in Israel.
Shivat Zion says it's the only Aliyah NGO in the UK that's officially recognised by the Jewish Agency for Israel, with strong partnerships with Israeli government ministries. But on its website, it mentions several illegal settlements, including a place called Efrat, half an hour's drive south of Jerusalem. So Emily arranged a follow-up call with Shivat Zion to find out if they would help her move there. But what she didn't tell them was that we were there, filming it.
I love it.
Hello.
Here, my audio's on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I feel like I've just been trying to find where I can fully be my true authentic self and again live very Jewishly, live through my Jewish.
There's only one place.
Exactly. It's a no-brainer.
The decision to do an undercover, I mean, puts you at all kinds of risks, and you've chosen to show your face in this video and to use your real name. What led you to make that? I mean, it's a remarkable decision.
Using myself as somebody to go and use my Jewish identity to gain access to these spaces is really important to bring to light what is actually going on. There's one place like Efrat, I think.
So Efrat is located in the disputed territories, let's call them that.
Yeah, I was wondering if, would that be a place that you all would help me make Aliyah to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. When we help, okay, we're not flying the planes, okay? Yeah. But we do support, and we inform, and we advise, and we step in when there's an issue, and when there's doubt, or when there's uncertainty, or something's not clear, or things like that. Okay, that's the service we can provide.
The illegal settlement of Efrat neighbours a Palestinian village called Wadi Rahal. Settlers have been filmed attacking Palestinian workers and detaining young children from Wadi Rahal during a spate of attacks that also included the shooting of a local resident. Efrat and Wadi Rahal are separated by a military road that's closed to Palestinians, while an internal checkpoint prevents them from accessing their own land, according to B'Tselem. And last year, the head of Efrat's council said that construction was underway to expand the settlement further, with reports of Palestinian homes and farm buildings being demolished.
I don't know, would you personally recommend a place like Efrat? Is it a good place to live? Or?
Efrat is awesome. Efrat is a very high living standard. It's a very nice place, first and foremost. It doesn't feel rural. Let me just put that. It's just like a suburb, okay? Everyone lives in fairly comfortable either houses or apartments. There's also apartment buildings there. They're developing big time. Yeah. So you're next to the Arabs. You hear
they're developing
and I mean, although the call to prayer and all of it, you hear from all angles. I mean, it's West Bank, but apart from it's a great living standard within the issue. Everyone's nice. Everyone tries to help each other. You have restaurants, you have clinics, you have, like I said, banks, supermarkets, everything.
If I did end up in Efrat, like what kind of support would I get from like Shivat Zion?
Well, we would put you in touch with, let's say, the Projector. They know everything about the community, and they will tell you, we have this program, we have these educational options, we have these facilities or trainings or Hebrew courses.
But these settlements come at the expense of Palestinians, and scenes like this have become the reality of life under occupation.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
No.
To find out more, I spoke to Issa Amro, a local Palestinian activist.
Efrat is a settlement, and to live there, it's a war crime. It's not awesome. So the Israeli settlers and in Efrat, they get quality life on the expense of the basic rights of the Palestinians. We have no freedom, no justice, no equality, no services because of the settlers who are occupying our land, stealing our land, and imposing their culture on us, imposing their ideological beliefs on us. One people get everything, and we lose everything because of the settlers.
Back in the UK, we made a startling discovery about Shivat Zion that raises further questions for the government. While offering to help people move to illegal settlements, Shivat Zion might potentially be getting tax subsidies from the British government. On the group's website, when you click on the button to donate, it gives you the option to add gift aid. Gift aid is a scheme that allows charities to reclaim tax on donations made by British taxpayers. So effectively, it's a government subsidy for charities. In an email seen by Declassified, Shivat Zion said that donations would be paid to a registered British charity called UK Toromet. The implication seemed to be that the charity would act as a conduit for the money. But when we contacted UK Toromet, they claimed there was no active relationship between the organisations and that no money had been passed on to Shivat Zion in the last 12 months. They also said that they'd now asked Shivat Zion not to use their name without permission.
We depend on people like you.
Your donation can give hundreds of Miwalim a chance to find safety, stability, and a future in Israel.
Now, we can't verify the claims made by UK Toromet, only the Charity Commission has the power to find out what was going on behind the scenes. But there's no doubt that donors to Shivat Zion would have been under the impression that their money would go via UK Toromet in order to benefit from gift aid. I wanted to understand what the legal implications of this could be. After all, the International Court of Justice issued an advisory opinion in 2024 saying that countries had an obligation not to render aid or assistance in maintaining Israeli settlements. Well, to try and find some answers, I'm going to meet a leading human rights lawyer, Daniel Mackover, to show him the undercover footage.
This is not a charity.
Like literally donating to this, if you're a UK citizen, even if you're not part of this, just donating to it is a war crime.
Charitable purpose. Fundamental breaches of international law cannot constitute charitable purposes. There needs to be some action taken, given the United Kingdom's clear position on this, to ensure that, especially if charitable funds are going there, that ceases, that gift aid isn't possible, that gift aid is recouped by revenue and customs, and it's just unacceptable, really, for these things to go unhindered when it's clear that they shouldn't be taking place.
Over the next few years, organisations like Shivat Zion are likely to become bigger and more important as more and more Brits make the move to Israel. It was predicted that more than 800 British citizens would make the move in 2025, compared with 340 in 2023. The majority, it should be said, go to places like Tel Aviv, but as more and more people go, we can expect to see an increase in Brits moving to illegal settlements. And on the call with Emily, Jonathan Bigney was keen to boast about Shivat Zion's growth.
Have you all had many people from the UK come and make Aliyah in the past few years?
UK is there's a growth. First of all, the growth we see currently since post 7th of October is in the amount of applications for Aliyah. So what we see is a huge increase in applicants, and we see an increase also in actual practical Aliyah. But I think the big wave is still to come.
The big wave still to come. Why do you think that?
All the signs currently are showing that there's a big wave all over here.
The Israeli government says that this increase is because anti-Semitism has made Europe unsafe for Jews. But although some parts of Israel potentially might be safer, the UK government has warned that illegal settlements in the West Bank do not offer security to Palestinians or Israelis.
Do you think that it's a fairly safe place to go to?
That's okay. That's a difficult question. I'm not going to respond right now in name of Shivat Zion. I'm just going to respond into my own knowledge of the place of the situation. Is that Ifkat itself is a fairly safe place. It's next to Somet HaGush, the Gush junction. There have been repeated terror attacks. People from the community have been murdered there. I think last month or 2 months ago, someone was murdered there. It's full of security and soldiers to protect these places because there's a lot of terror happening all the time. So if that itself is, let's say, 99 out of 100%, I would say it's safe, but it's in an area that is never 100% safe. Stuff happens. Yeah. Again, stuff happens everywhere.
Yes.
All right. Great. My pleasure. Yeah. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care.
Bye-bye.
I love her face afterwards. It's
I
great.
had to do a whole lot of acting.
Yeah, of course.
No mention of the Palestinians whatsoever, and not even by name of Palestinians, but specifically saying Arabs or Muslim rather than Palestinian because they claim Palestine doesn't exist. And how they use Judaism, how they use the Jewish identity to draw people in and to say this is the only place where you're able to be fully Jewish. This is the only place where you'll fully be able to be safe, which is such bullshit when he was talking about how these different settlements have fences up and checkpoints and barriers, and the Palestinian friends that I have, even Palestinian people who've married into my family, they would have no right, no ability to even go to this land, let alone be able to set up a life there worth living. Yeah, it's morally disgraceful. And I feel so bad saying what I had to say in order to get information out. Yeah.
Shivat Zion would probably say at this point, look, we help lots and lots of people move to Israel, and the vast majority of them go to places like Tel Aviv, which is a long way from the settler violence. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the fact is they are prepared from this interview to assist someone to move into the occupied territory without any blink of an eyelid from the material you've shown me, or any indication of what we've just discussed about the illegality of those settlements and the fact that there is, in some instances, it would constitute war crimes to actually aid and abet the transfer. So British citizens face the risk of aiding and abetting a war crime.
This video is a result of months of work that was made possible by your donations. Please subscribe to the channel, and if you're able to, please consider donating.
Yeah. So this is also important. Let me stop this. Shivat Zion's CEO, Raga Evers, responded to our questions by calling Emily a modern-day capo in reference to a concentration camp prisoner who helped the Nazis enforce the rules. Okay. Evers said, quote, "We assist New Olim regardless of where they choose to settle, indignant motherfucker, committing war crimes, and provides support that falls under social affairs activities of which new immigrants are part." Furthermore, while I do not feel the need to any need to apologize for living as a Jew in Judea, neither to you nor the aforementioned individual, again, indignance that was completely unearned, it further underlies the deceptive manner in which elements of the anti-Semitic lobby, together with a handful of helpful modern-day capos, proud capo here, are operating. Yeah, fuck these people. Next. All right. There's more. Where are we going? Here we go. Here's the UK Touramet, okay? That's the charity. There are no current engagements with any regulatory body on any issue. Yeah, they're not being investigated. They don't give a shit. Any assertion or accusation, implicit or explicit, made by you that UK Touramet Ltd is engaged in any activity that's contrary to English charity law, Charity Commission's guidelines, or any other activity that is not charitable is untrue and void of any factual or legal base. Do you have a website that allows people to deduct charitable donations? If that's and then you claim to funnel them to Israel on your website. Now, we don't know if that's legitimate or not. I'd love to see an investigation, but we're not going to get that likely because Keir Starmer's covering for Israel. All right, now on top of that, Touramet had something to say. All grants made by Touramet are made with the full discretion of UK Touramet's trustees. Who are those? Taking into account any wishes expressed by those who originally donated the funds to UK Touramet for the funds to be used for a particular charitable purpose. You mean like funding specific settlements in Efrat in the West Bank, so you would be forced then to do that at the wishes of your donor, even though it's a war crime? Aha. How about fuck you and fuck Israel? All grants are made in strict adherence to English charity law and regulations. Yeah, that's why you created the shell company, so that you stayed under that law. Charity Commission guidance and UK Touramet's grant-making policies and procedures. It's very proper and on the up and up. Yes, to fund resettlement in illegal occupied territories and help UK citizens commit war crimes. Wonderful. Any funding granted is strictly limited to those activities of the grantee that fall well within the boundaries of charitable purposes and charitable expenses, especially when working internationally. How does Shivat Zion operate in the UK without UK Touramet, is my question then. Answer that question. They won't. All right, I think we got one more slide. Nope, we're done. So again, Declassified UK, Martin Williams, great article and investigation and video accompanying, but I thought it was really important for you to see this video and to see the interaction that this lady had with Shivat Zion. the UK Torment needs to sue them. I don't think that they would sue them because I think they are secretly actually doing something behind the scenes. That's my speculation. I don't know, and I'm not going to accuse, but it sounds to me like they have a website set up as a conduit in order to funnel UK money through out to Shivat Zion, according to what Shivat Zion says. Why would they be using this company to solicit donations to not have it go to Shivat Zion? That wouldn't make much sense, would it? Wouldn't they then find another charity and set up a funnel through that one instead? It makes very little sense to me. So again, what is Aliyah and a little bit about it? This is just kind of like a summary. Talking about Efrat and the settlements there and about what gift aid is and why it's very similar to charitable donations here, where it's tax deductible. You can take that off of your income and pay less in taxes and get a deduction for it. All right. Declassified cannot verify the claims made by UK Torah. Only the Charity Commission has the power. So if the Charity Commission decided to look into it, they could easily find out and publicly announce, no, they're clear. They haven't done that. They haven't investigated at all because people don't want that investigated, would be my guess. So so we've now got Larry Ellison funding and funneling and controlling this board of peace, or at least 6 of the 9 members having close relationships. We've got UK charities and UK people trying to relocate UK residents to the occupied territories into West Bank. Not even just Israel, which is all occupied territory, but specifically the disputed occupied territory. That's another unbelievable term there. Big fan of Declassified UK. Again, Indie Media Award honoree. They are an independent journalistic outlet. They do not take government or corporate funding. They rely solely on users, as do we. So if you're able to and of means, please support INN and this show with a tip. And you can do that over at Cash App, $ Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network is the easiest way to do that here. Or IndieNewsNow.com is a place to leave a tip or to pick up some merch over there. IndieMediaToday.com, we're live over there. That's my Substack. And INN Newsletter is the network's Substack, where you can get a weekly update of everything going on for all of the members of INN. And everything that we simulcast. We simulcast AM Wake Up weekdays. So check that out at 10 a.m. Monday through Friday. Today, it was T-Lav Tuesday with Ryan from The Last American Vagabond, and Pasta Jardula, our friend Pasta, did a drop-in. Today's actually Pasta's birthday. So if you see Pasta or you message him online, wish him a happy birthday. So he showed up and talked some smack for an hour and a half or so, and that was a good time to see the 3 guys hanging out together. I want to get to my next story, talking about Lebanon now. And so this whole show almost ends up being kind of a fuck Israel show, in a way, because everything that we're talking about tonight, for the most part, has some connection to Israel, believe it or not. This one is more direct. All right. This one I went to Indie Media Award honoree Rania Khalek from Breakthrough News. She also is an independent journalist on her own and has been publishing to her own Substack, raniakhalek.substack.com. And she wrote this the other day. Now, this past week, bombs were dropped on Beirut and on southern Lebanon to a level that they have not seen since this escalation began, for sure. And they dropped, 100 bombs in 10 minutes or some crazy number, and they killed thousands of people. This is Israel, U.S. bombs. I don't know how much we're involved, they're involved. It's certainly our bombs either way. But Rania wrote an article, and she actually was invited to go on a couple of different corporate media shows because she's actually in Lebanon right now, and she's seeing the bombs like falling around her, and she's lost family members. So she said, "We are not Hezbollah targets. Stop lying about Israel's crimes." Because Israel murdered my relative yesterday while she was at a pharmacy purchasing medicine for the displaced. Was she a Hezbollah target? And here is that relative, Rana Malieb. Okay. Killed by the Israeli strike on Kifun while buying medication to distribute to those displaced by Israeli attacks. All right. So we go back. So Rania wrote this article. It's very short. She's got a couple of her appearances in here. They killed Lebanese from all sects yesterday. I recently learned that a relative of mine, Rana Malieb, was killed in an Israeli airstrike on a pharmacy in Kifun. She was purchasing medication to distribute the displaced. Was she a Hezbollah target? Well, according to some major media outlets, and she's got a citing of a tweet there, she was. People were murdered by U.S.-funded Israeli bombs yesterday while attending a funeral, shopping at the pharmacy, strolling around their neighborhood, hanging out in their home, sitting in traffic, sheltering in a school housing the displaced. Anyone who promotes Israel's obvious lie that these people were somehow legitimate Hezbollah targets is disgusting. The Israelis carried out acts of mass terrorism across Lebanon in places far away from any battlefield and in full view of the world. The reporters who work for these big media outlets are aware this was terrorism against civilians. They experienced the terror themselves as they are reporting from Beirut. Why are their Western media editors so obsessed with covering up Israeli bloodlust and criminality? We know that. The editors behind these decisions are a disgrace to the journalism profession and to humanity. That's because they're not journalists. They're information brokers. They're gatekeepers. Israel told the same lies about Hamas targets in Gaza. The Americans and Israelis told the same lies about IRGC targets in Iran. But it hits harder to experience it firsthand. Yeah, remember that in Syria also, they said the same thing about the Syrian rebels and a lot of that, same thing. But there's nothing quite like waiting to see if the Israelis decide today is the day to bury you in your home. Then, feeling relieved that it didn't happen to you, then opening the New York Times and reading that the fate you were lucky enough to escape befell Hezbollah targets, like your relative who was buying medicine for the victims of Israel's latest Nakba. Here is my message to the mainstream editors.
Stop lying about Israel's crimes. We see through your bullshit. The idea that there was Hezbollah targets hit is a lie. It's an obvious lie. People were bombed while attending funerals. They were bombed while shopping. They were bombed while strolling around their neighborhoods. They were bombed hanging out at their houses. They were bombed just sitting in traffic. Is that Hezbollah traffic? I mean, give me a break. I saw the New York Times also say Israel was bombing Hezbollah targets. I just want to say this to the editors who are editing these headlines and sentences about what's happening here, because yesterday was pure terrorism. And if you're describing it as anything else, you are a disgusting and shameful person who is promoting lies and has no business working in media. Israel carried out acts of pure terrorism across Lebanon yesterday. And this was, again, far from any battlefield and in full view of the world. And the thing that's interesting here, Zoe, is that all of these major media outlets have reporters on the ground here. And those reporters were in Beirut. They were terrorized too. So why? Why are Western media editors so obsessed with covering up for Israel's crimes? Why are you so obsessed for covering up for criminal, lunatic, genocidal maniacs? Like these editors, in my opinion,
because those genocidal lunatic maniacs are their bosses.
Pathetic.
What do you mean, Rania? That's why. Because they're the same people that own the networks are the ones that want the bombs to be falling.
Cowards, or they're a disgrace to journalism and humanity at this point.
Yeah, I would say that it's B. But they're not journalists and they don't really care about being a disgrace to journalism. They're propagandists and they're monsters. So she actually appeared on ABC News to correct the record. She was invited to basically say a lot of the same stuff. She called out Israel's indiscriminate bombings. She rejected propaganda. Again, I'm not going to play because I'm not really a fan of corporate media and amplifying that. It's nice that they invited an independent on, somebody who was actually there to tell from firsthand experience how that was going. Okay. But exposing the so-called negotiations with Lebanon's weak, unrepresentative government, and then explain how it's meant to sabotage an Iranian-imposed ceasefire and push Lebanon towards civil war. I also don't think that Rania watched the Drey Dossier's video about Larry Ellison and how all of this is setting up so that Oracle gets the contracts to lay the groundwork to own the infrastructure on the rebuilds for all of these places that they're planning to destroy. And that's a lot of the motivation behind this, is the money that they see on the other side of it. And they don't care how many people they have to murder in order to get it. Obviously, it's a disgrace. It's horrible. And I feel awful for Rania, of course, because he's now having to experience firsthand what the people of Gaza were experiencing, losing family members, wondering if they're going to make it through the day, wondering if today's the day that they're going to get bombed and there's going to be a drone overhead that drops a bomb on their house and takes out their whole family. Right. Every show should have at least one fuck Israel. Dude, this whole show is fuck Israel. All right. Now, I also wanted to bring from Fiorella. We talked about Pasta. Happy birthday. Pasta and Fiorella did a show together. They're actually both in Peru right now covering elections. So go check them out over at Truthwire. Fiorella 3 days ago, Israel now is still bombing civilian-populated Al-Tiri in South Lebanon with illegal and internationally banned white phosphorus. That's a war crime right there. A war crime, complete disregard of Iran's demands for negotiations, and that things stop in Lebanon. They stop attacking Lebanon. This is what the white phosphorus spreading looks like. And the people on the ground were reporting chemical burns from white phosphorus. You think Rania had to flee? I mean, I hope she's safe. It's awful. I also wanted to bring this, and Drey Dossier mentioned it earlier, but Apple actually removed entire Lebanese village names and logos, keeping only Israeli labels in the entire country of Lebanon. Literally a part of ethnic cleansing, by the way. That's mind blown. How? How is that allowed? I mean, shit, they allowed Apple Maps change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. I mean, and nobody stops this. I mean, again, how do you boycott Apple Maps? How do you? Yeah, they're taking out infrastructure. They're taking out entire villages. They're murdering civilians, knowing that they're civilians, and then claiming that they're Hezbollah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, and today's fresh hell, Trump's pick to replace the Fed chair is worth $100 million. His wife's a billionaire. Of course, because corruption breeds corruption. And that's where we're at. All right. Even better, I understand show covers something else from time to time, maybe, but right now, a lot of what's happening in the world destabilized is happening because of Israel and because people are running cover for the genocide that Israel's been committing for now 2.5 full years, almost 3 years. White phosphorus reignites in wounds during bandage changes. Oh my God. Just awful. Awful. All right. Okay, so let me go back here. We are completely user-funded, so support independent media because we need it more than ever. The ways to do that are right there. Cash App, $, Indie News Network, and ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/IndieNewsNetwork. Patreon.com/IndieNewsNetwork if you want to do monthly. You can leave a tip over at IndieNewsNow.com. That's our website where we aggregate news 24/7. And then over at the Substacks, IndieMediaToday.com and INNNewsletter.com. I also think I forgot to mention that Fee and Pasta both are Indie Media Award honorees, so I need to hit one for each one of them. All right. And Rania, I said as well, she's part of Breakthrough News, which was one of them. Okay. I want to get to Iran and what's going on in Iran. And then I've got a couple things here, a couple of articles. Alan McLeod brought something, Rabina Qureshi, and I have one other thing here as well. Let me go check out on chat and say hi to everybody real quick. Hopefully all the audio came out better on the declassified segment, and on anything else we're watching. But yeah, it's a crazy time out there right now, and I am not hopeful as to what's happening at the moment. Although Iran has been holding its own, how long can it hold its own for? I mean, one of the things I think that these monsters count on is that they have the resources to sustain over a long period of time that most of these other countries just don't. And Iran having the oil, like the Strait of Hormuz right now is the big power play. Until Israelis and Americans can figure out another solution around that, they're going to have some negotiating power. Also, that I believe an aircraft carriers hit. They've shot down a couple of our planes. It has not been clean for the U.S. military whatsoever to attack this sovereign country. And we haven't done a ground invasion. And thank goodness we haven't done that yet, because we would get hammered in a ground invasion. But our bombs and our aerial assault, combined with Israel, is doing a substantial amount of damage on the ground in Israel. All right. And I want to bring a couple of articles that showcase that. This is Rabina Qureshi. Her Substack is Bearing Witness. She published this article the other day. 6 million Muslims displaced in Iran, in Palestine, and Lebanon. Who again is the real terrorist? Good question. For decades now, the West, at the behest of Israel, has literally been mass murdering Muslims in the millions. Over 6 million are now displaced alone in Israel, Lebanon, and Palestine. In Iran, sorry. It's funny, that number 6 million. I remember Israelis using that number for something else. It's rarely mentioned, counted, or commemorated, that 6 million displaced. Every indignity has been suffered by the Palestinians and the West with its double standards, which has the temerity to then preach human rights. We've watched for decades how Western leaders collude to treat the global majority. We've watched how Israel has been indulged as a victim. The lives of Palestinians and Iraqis, Iranians, Libyans, and Syrians have all been treated as nothing, expendable, collateral, not worth a story. I would add the Lebanese to that as well, unfortunately. We've watched how one man, Netanyahu, has been beating the drum for the West to reduce to ashes perfectly functioning Muslim societies. And they've done that to Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Netanyahu and his regime, and by extension Israeli society, refer to Israel as being this tiny little country surrounded by terror states. Really? You will, of course, say this if your policy is blind racial prejudice. And yes, Israel is an ethno-supremacist state, labeling countries because of their faith. And yet Christian and Jewish faiths enjoy protection in these countries. The U.S., Israel, Europe, and the rest of the West like to give the impression that these countries are barbaric, savage, incapable of giving human rights. Judging by Israel's actions in Gaza and the U.S.'s actions to immigrants in its country and Europe's treatment of those who oppose genocide, tell me again, who's barbaric and savage? Have you heard the lies told by the U.S. president, who features thousands of times in the Epstein files? I heard over 1 million. Have you seen him call the Iranians bastards in the face of civility and dignity by the Iranians? Like a terrorist. In the middle of apparent peace talks, Trump launched an unprovoked attack and killed their supreme leader. Like a terrorist, he dropped a U.S. Tomahawk missile on a school filled with 168 little schoolgirls and their 14 teachers. The Iranians finally reacted to persistent aggression, the supreme crime under international law, after showing strategic infinite patience. Patience in the face of barbarism. Iran prepared for these strikes for decades. Trump wants to remove their nuclear capability. For the sake of the world, for humanity. It's never been more important for Iran to be supported, but it stands alone against literal terrorists and monsters. One final point. Iran has never launched unprovoked wars against any country, ever. The U.S. does it as a matter of routine. It spent billions bombing Iran only for oil and gas prices to go up in price, for the Strait of Hormuz to be blocked indefinitely, which will cause economic suffering to ordinary Americans. Trump is rich. He's unaffected, of course. It's the poor who will suffer most. Imagine if instead Trump had spent those billions not on bombing Muslims and brown people, not on propping up Israel's generous welfare state and its high-tech military, but on America first, building up his own people and society, providing decent housing, health care. These Western leaders call Muslim countries terror states when their accusation is just a confession. It's Western regimes that are complicit in genocide and actual literal terrorism of Muslims and the rest of the global majority. Netanyahu never hid his expansionist ambitions. They are embroidered on the shoulder of every Israeli uniform, Greater Israel. Tens of thousands of Palestinian and Lebanese children and babies are no more. 6 million Palestinians and Lebanese have been displaced by Israel. U.S.-Real. That's the combined Israel-U.S. entity. The United States of Israel. The West has blood on its hands. And those of us who watched will never be able to unsee dead babies in incubators, shredded children in plastic bags, whole families buried under rubble, and dead little girls hanging like coats on street wires. Here's a video of Iranian railway stations built by the Iranian terror state. They look more like museums than basically functional railway stations. You should see their hospitals and roads and ancient mosques and churches and synagogues too, before the West needlessly bombed them. The question again remains, who are the real terrorists? And that's one of the backpacks from the Menab school. And that's the synagogue. Let's look at the caption there. That's the rabbi standing at the ruins of the synagogue that was bombed by Israel in Iran. And the Palestinians that are lined up for potential execution by the IDF in Israeli torture facilities that they call prisons. Strait of Hormuz. Some of the architecture. And then this is the subway that she's talking about. It's just 11th second. Look at that. Doesn't look barbaric or monstrous to me. Just me. Fuck Israel. And fuck the United States government for that. So, not only that, but Israeli official threatens the world live. Quote, anyone who criticizes Israel is our enemy. We will watch you through Google. We will expose your weaknesses. We will get you fired from your job. And if you own a business, we will bankrupt you. This is not a random activist speaking. This is an official from the Israeli embassy in Washington. This is exactly what Zionism not has become, always has been. A global intimidation machine that threatens your livelihood if you dare speak against them. Ask that cunt Dahlia, whatever her name was, in Canada that had Yves Engler locked up for 5 days in Montreal last year. A global intimidation machine, again, that threatens your livelihood if you dare to speak against them. It's 1:45, and it's in Hebrew. Your actions will not disappear into the darkness. We will shine a light on you. That, thanks to Google and SEO, will follow you the rest of your life. When you look for a job, when you look for a spouse, when you look for a nanny, when you look for anything, or our work will always be documented. And thanks to Google and SEO in corporations where DEI leaders smeared Israel, excused Hamas, we pressured CEOs, some resigned, many were terminated, but policies were changed from governmental to art institutions, online where anonymous accounts spread. Violent threats, we traced patterns, elevated evidence, and worked with authorities, leading to an arrest from Florida, South Carolina, New York, California, Texas. And we're not slowing down, sadly. Today, Stop Anti-Semitism, she's proud to say, runs one of the most robust antiseptic enforcement operations in the United States and worldwide, monitoring campuses, digital networks, activist groups, and public officials, documenting incidents in real time and mobilizing millions of people, of allies that are guilty quietly by our side. But the fight is bigger than that. It's about securing our future, a future where Zionist students can walk across a quad without being screamed at, where they can advocate for genocide without any repercussions, a future where employers understand that anti-Semitism is not anti-Zionism, you cunt. Is not activism. No, it's not activism. It's being a fucking human being, you cunt. It's bigotry, and it will cause you to lose your job. No, it's not bigotry. The bigotry is coming from Israel and the Jewish supremacist cunt standing there. You threatening our job? That's very nice of you. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. Zionism is not Judaism. And remember that there are more Christian Zionists in the United States, so you're threatening us with this for criticizing Israel? You're going to do that to Christian Zionists as well? I guess. Charlie Kirk was one of those. We saw what happened to him. Oh, right. You guys didn't do that. Aha, sure. All right. But more Christian Zionists in the United States than Jews worldwide. Don't forget that. That is until they find out how Christians are actually treated in Israel by Israelis. All of this is Israel trying to ignite a religious war to have Christians murder Muslims on Israel's behalf. Don't get fooled. This is these assholes trying to start a religious war. Fuck them. Don't let them do it. Next, I brought this piece from Alan McLeod, Mint Press News, both Indie Media Award honorees. All right. U.S. and Israel have bombed 307 plus medical facilities in Iran, carrying on the long tradition of targeting medical workers. 307. That is 307 war crimes. This is a short one from Ellen, so I was happy to bring it. The United States and Israel are systematically targeting hospitals in Iran. Sound familiar? In 1 month of bombing, the two countries have hit at least 307 health centers across the country, according to reports from the Iranian Red Crescent. The carefully planned destruction of the Islamic Republic's medical infrastructure fits into a long history of deliberate U.S. attacks on hospitals. Since the end of World War II, Washington has targeted medical centers in at least 16 countries, and the 307 Iranian sites hit doesn't even come close to the record for the number of hospitals in any country destroyed by American bombs and missiles, amazingly enough. There was no warning. The U.S. and Israeli airstrikes hit Gandhi Hotel Hospital in northern Tehran on March 1st and again on March 2nd. I showed those pictures last week. Locals were fasting for Ramadan as missiles tore into the building, shattering glass and wrecking its neonatal unit, an ICU. Completed in 2009 and described as a beacon of Iranian medicine and one of the most advanced medical centers in West Asia, the 17-story building was among the country's most important hospitals. Images of the aftermath show a once proud building in ruins, with floor after floor devastated. Gandhi Hotel Hospital is one of more than 300 medical centers that have been hit by U.S. and Israeli strikes. 9 days afterward, on March 11th, the Gulf Martyrs Educational and Medical Center in Bushehr on Iran's southern coast was targeted and severely damaged. Missile explosions destroyed much of the hospital's medical equipment. Even as the glass was still falling, authorities made the decision to rush patients to the nearby Nuclear Scientists Martyrs Hospital, despite the fear of a double-tap strike, like the ones often seen in Israeli attacks on Palestine, and also seen in the Manab girls' school bombing. Video footage from the aftermath of the attack shows wards, waiting rooms, and corridors completely devastated, with both walls and roofs collapsing under the strain of the bombardment. The Imam Ali Andishmek's only hospital and patients were forced to be bused to healthcare facilities in other cities, according to Hossein Kermanpour, head of public relations for the Iranian Ministry of Health. I wish Trump and Netanyahu understood that this is a crime against humanity, he said. I think they do, but they don't really care. Other medical infrastructure, including a first responder center, an Iranian Red Crescent office, and of course, as we mentioned last week, the Louis Pasteur Institute, a medical research laboratory, have also been hit. What message does attacking hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, and the Pasteur Institute as a medical research center in Iran convey? Well, as a specialist physician, the president urged the WHO, the Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, and physicians worldwide to respond to this crime against humanity. They've been responding. It's just falling on deaf ears. The attacks have largely been ignored by Western media because they've been instructed to be ignored. Few newspapers or TV news reports have even mentioned the damage to the country's healthcare system, let alone centered it as a major news story. So this is the U.S.'s long history of bombing hospitals. President Trump alone has a history of targeting medical facilities. Last year, U.S. forces carried out 14 separate airstrikes on the Al-Rasul Al-Azam Oncology Hospital in Sadr, Yemen, the centerpiece of the country's healthcare network. A cancer center in Yemen. For a full investigation into that attack and the U.S.'s long history of targeting civilian medical infrastructure around the world, here's another Mint Press report linked there. Quote, with the Yemen attack, the U.S. constitutes long history of deliberately bombing hospitals. Repeated attacks against hospitals is more of a pattern than an aberration for Trump. In 2017, the U.S. carried out 20 strikes in Raqqa, Syria, using white phosphorus munitions to do so. Wow, we just saw white phosphorus dropped in Lebanon 3 days ago, killing at least 30 civilians in the process then. Trump's predecessor, Barack drone bomber-in-chief Obama, was not less fond of targeting healthcare facilities. In 2015, his administration ordered a bombing campaign against a Doctors Without Borders hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan. The building was one of the largest and most recognizable in the city, and an internal inquiry found that the airmen aboard the gunship pushed back against the order, citing its illegality. They shouldn't have fired. They were overruled and forced to carry out the strike, killing at least 42 people. Obama's attack on the Doctors Without Borders facility marked the only time in history that one Nobel Peace Prize winner has attacked another one. During his time in office, Obama bombed 7 countries, including Libya, where U.S. planes struck a hospital in Sléten, leveling it completely. What difference does it make, right, Hillary? At least 11 people were killed in that operation. Murder. Perhaps no nation on earth has felt the impact of American power in the 21st century as badly as Iraq. Successive administrations attacked critical infrastructure there, including in 2003 when President Bush bombed the Red Crescent Maternity Hospital in Baghdad. While many were killed in the strike, the real death toll, as UNICEF noted, was far higher, as with no medical care, maternal mortality rates spiked after the attack. Sounds like Gaza. The 1990s is often remembered in the West as a time of peace. Yet President Clinton used the period to target medical infrastructure in 3 separate countries. In Yugoslavia, U.S. planes bombed a number of hospitals, dropping now banned cluster munitions at a facility in Nice, killing at least 15 people. Then you've got Mogadishu. In Somalia in 1993, U.S. soldiers carried out a mortar attack against the Digfair Hospital in Mogadishu, destroying the building's main reception area. They then proceeded to bomb the journalists attempting to cover the incident. I believe that's Black Hawk Down. Meanwhile, in Sudan, Clinton ordered a hit on the Al-Shifa medicine factory in Sudan. 14 cruise missiles pounded the plant, turning what had been the largest producer of medicine in the country into a pile of twisted metal. The German ambassador to Sudan estimated that without the antibiotics, anti-malarials, and other drugs it produced, the true death toll of the strike was in the tens of thousands. Few Americans even know about this incident. The 1980s were a dangerous time to be a doctor in a country designated for regime change. The U.S. invaded Grenada in 1983 in order to put an end to the socialist revolution on the Caribbean island. Now, that also was to deflect from the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut in 1983. In the process, it bombed the Richmond Hill Mental Hospital, killing dozens. In El Salvador, U.S.-backed death squads flying an American aircraft stormed the hospital in San Ildefonso, killing 5 people. Paratroopers also kidnapped, raped, and tortured the staff, including French nurse Madeleine Lagadec, causing a major diplomatic incident. Right? Between 1981 and 1984, at least 63 health centers in Nicaragua were forced to close due to attacks from U.S.-backed trained Contra death squads. That's the Noriega people, whom President Reagan labeled the moral equivalent of our founding fathers. Right. The most well-documented case of U.S. attacks on Vietnamese medical infrastructure occurred in December 1972, when American planes dropped over 100 bombs on the giant Bach Mai Hospital in Hanoi, killing at least 28 staff and an unconfirmed number of patients. During a congressional hearing on clandestine activities in Laos and Cambodia, lawmakers were told that bombing of hospitals in those countries was quote-unquote routine. To this day, Laos remains the most bombed country in history. You never even hear about Laos. North Korea, however, suffered the brunt of American attacks. In the course of the Korean War, the U.S. military destroyed an estimated 1,000 hospitals through bombing, as entire cities were leveled. Again, sounds familiar. Professor Bruce Cummings, America's foremost expert on Korea, estimates that the U.S. killed around 25% of the entire North Korean population in a 3-year period. Crazy. Now we get to the Israeli crimes and American dreams. Israel is, of course, no stranger to bombing hospitals. Virtually every health center in Gaza has been damaged or destroyed multiple times. IDF snipers have targeted healthcare workers inside hospitals, have kidnapped and tortured doctors, freed Dr. Hussam Abu Safia and all the other doctors held in captivity. But particularly noteworthy, again, is the murder of Adnan al-Bursh, head of orthopedics at Al-Shifa Hospital. In December of 2023, al-Bursh was arrested and detained for months and was likely raped to death by IDF troops. Israel is now systematically targeting Lebanon's health system, as I've mentioned before, as it did with Palestine, shelling hospitals deep inside the country. As a result, at least 57 Lebanese healthcare workers have died. The U.S. attacks on Iranian infrastructure are part of a wider regime change operation aimed at overthrowing the Islamic Republic and installing a U.S.-compliant administration, or at least a World Economic Forum-compliant administration. In recent times, Washington has assassinated the country's supreme leader, carried out protracted economic warfare that seriously harmed Iran, and fomented protests aimed at destabilizing and dislodging the government. It's done all three of those things in 2026. Trump also confirmed that his administration smuggled arms to Kurdish groups and to protesters leading the recent anti-government demonstrations, a key one factor in the violence that erupted. Thus, while systematic U.S.-Israeli attacks on Iranian hospitals are shocking acts, they fit into a clear pattern stretching back over 80 years. As cataloged here, the United States has bombed healthcare infrastructure in at least 16 countries since the end of World War II. Hitting hospitals may be a war crime, but it seems to be as American as apple pie. And shout out to legendary Indie Media Award honoree Alan McLeod over at Mint Press News, both also Indie Media Award honoree. Mint Press is in the middle of a fundraising drive. We talked in December about their fundraising. They did an Indiegogo campaign where it got frozen with $51,000, suspended, and then they returned the money to everybody. So they had to start all over, and they really needed that money. They recouped about $30,000 of it, I believe. You can still go to the Mint Press News website, click on Support NPN, and donate right here. Okay. They need to raise $300,000 by May 1st to keep the operations moving forward. And they really need your help. That's Patreon, okay, or send a check, Bitcoin, okay, or become a sustaining member here and put in a credit card or whatever. Okay. I interviewed Alan McLeod earlier this year at INN One-on-One. You can catch that over at INNnewsletter.com. But I thought it was really important to showcase that. I also wanted to mention one other thing, that not only are we hitting health centers, and we've now documented a long history of hitting health centers, all right, we're also hitting schools. also the pattern that Israel had attacked Gaza with. And they blew up every university and school in Gaza. And anytime there was a school, they would bomb that and call it a Hamas target because they don't want the kids being educated at all. So I went to Truth Out for this one. Indie Media Award honoree. U.S.-Israeli strikes on Iran's universities signal higher education is also no longer off limits. So even if the ceasefire held, which it didn't, and the war came to an end, Iran's academia will bear great costs and long-term impacts. And that is a photo of the Shahid Beheshti University seen destroyed after a missile strike on April 4th. Throughout their war on Iran, the U.S. and Israel broke many norms of military engagement, such as systematically targeting academic institutions in Iran. Universities became a major casualty, and explicit acknowledgments by Israeli leaders and some U.S. public figures clarified that these institutions were not collateral damage, but rather intended targets. It's also a war crime. There are no definitive figures as to the number of higher education institutes targeted. But Iran's science minister, Hossein Samai-Saraf, has said that more than 30 universities have already been bombed. It's truly unbelievable that in the 21st century, in the age of human rights, in the age of international law and international humanitarian law, civilian locations and civilians are being targeted. This person naively told reporters upon inspecting the ruins of the Laser and Plasma Research Institute at Shahid Beheshti University in Tehran. Had they not been watching what was happening in Gaza the last 3 years, in the West Bank, in Lebanon, in Syria? It's regrettable that our adversary has gone back to the Stone Age rather than us coming from the Stone Age, he said, a reference to Trump's infamous threat against Iran. He added that the international community is deprived of Iran's human potential when the country's scientific centers become targets in military campaigns. Sure. Founded in 1960 as the National University of Iran, Shahid Beheshti University, or SBU, is known for its robust law, literature, and architecture departments. The UK-based QS World University Rankings had ranked that university 214th in Asia among over 1,500 universities listed regionally. So it was up there in the top, 30%? Mir Hussein Mousavi, a former presidential candidate and leader of the 2009 Green Movement, who's been under house arrest since 2011, is an SBU alumnus. House arrest for 15 years. The most shocking incident in this string of attacks was the bombing of Tehran's Sharif University of Technology, often referred to as Iran's MIT. Why wouldn't Israel want to hit the technology centers? In the early hours of April 6th, U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on the southern parts of the iconic campus destroyed several buildings, including the Philosophy of Science Group, High Performance Computing Center, and Information and Communication Technology Center. 60 years after its founding, Sharif University has established itself as an internationally renowned center for research and academic collaboration. Even at the height of tensions between Iran and the U.S. in the late 2000s, it hosted several American Nobel Prize recipients, including the 2005 economics laureate Thomas Schelling, Burton Richter, Joseph Houghton Taylor Jr., and they all gave speeches to students there. These scientists, as well as other U.S. academics who visited the college over the years, often said they left the campus astonished by the passion they had seen among Iranian students and their widespread appreciation for American thinkers. A glimpse into academic life in Iran that's often neglected in U.S. media reports, so that they can spin them as barbarians and lesser than. Sharif University of Technology is known for some of its distinguished alumni, including Mariam Mirzakhani, the late Stanford University scientist, and the first female recipient of the Fields Medal, the highest international honor in mathematics. But the university as a whole has gained a reputation for its selective admission process and elite public image. Of nearly 1 million high school graduates applying to undergraduate programs every year through a nationwide university entrance exam known as Concours, only between 800 and 1,000 applicants end up being admitted to Sharif University. Literally the top of the top. Over the years, it's also become known internationally as one of the pedigrees of Iran's brain drain, with a large number of its alumni leaving the country every year in search of better opportunities overseas. Representative Yasamin Ansari of Arizona, the first Iranian American Democrat in Congress, told Truth Out that she hoped that science and higher education leaders, as well as every member of Congress, denounced these attacks. Yeah, right. Half of them are encouraging them. Her quote is that destroying universities and civilian infrastructure will have long-lasting consequences for Iran's 90 million people and could amount to war crimes under international law. Yeah, they know, and they know that nobody's going to hold them accountable, and they would like to be the only ones that have the most educated people in the world. Thank you very much. These strikes are devastating and completely unjustified. Universities like Sharif University have produced some of the most brilliant and successful Iranian Americans in our country. Destroying universities and civilian infrastructure will have long-lasting consequences for Iran's 90 million people. Yes. Shortly before Sharif University was targeted, the bombing of Iran University of Science and Technology had sent shockwaves throughout the country. That one was founded in 1929, ranked 77th in Times Higher Education's ranking of universities in all of Asia. Again, over 1,500 universities ranked 77th, leveled to the ground because Israel and the U.S. wanted to. Right. When IUST's School of Railway Engineering was founded in 1997, it was reportedly the first such academic department in the Middle East. The university's sprawling campus in Tehran's Narmark neighborhood hosts 19 libraries. Universities in Iran and the United States have tried to maintain their ties over the years of diplomatic bitterness and splitting the two governments. Cultural and academic exchanges were not always totally disrupted, and goodwill delegations of professors and academic administrators have traveled between the two countries in a bid to bridge the gaps. Especially under Obama, in June 2015, a group of senior U.S. higher education representatives was sent to Iran by the Institute of International Education, led by IIE's then president, Alan Goodman. IIE described the event as a historic new chapter in educational relations. And then we got Trump. Some of the Iranian institutions the group visited included Shahid Beheshti University and Isfahan University of Technology, both of which were bombed in this aggression. But even with this history of engagement, under difficult circumstances, and in the face of pushback by hawkish politicians on both sides, U.S. universities have been largely silent on the tide of destruction affecting their Iranian counterparts. Since coming to office, Trump has kicked off a full-throated assault on higher education in the U.S., including cuts to DEI initiatives that facilitated the extension of opportunities to underrepresented demographics on campus, and bringing multi-million-dollar lawsuits against elite universities. They also are compiling lists of anti-Zionist Jewish students and Jewish students alike. And they subpoenaed Columbia University for that, for example. These policies came after universities, buoyed along by corporate media smears, cracked down on students protesting Israel's genocide in Gaza. That was while Biden was still in office. Pressure from the Trump administration, coercing academic institutions into compliance, has likely played a role in the lack of student-led resistance against the U.S. government's war of aggression in the Middle East. Yeah, they've taken actions to stop the encampments. The lack of outcry, including from U.S. universities, reflects how Israel's annihilation of Gaza's higher education system has normalized the targeting of universities. I don't think it's normalized it. I think they've scared and intimidated the students into silence. Of course, Quincy Institute. In addition, U.S. universities have been largely cowed by Trump and would be unlikely to risk drawing his ire by criticizing his administration's bombing of Iranian universities. While I sincerely hope that the U.S. will no longer attack Iran, I expect that the memory of America bombing several of their most prestigious universities will linger for decades. As well it should. Alumni and former affiliates of the attacked Iranian universities, many of whom now work abroad, took to social media to recount their memories of studying at the prestigious institutions. It's almost like rubbing salt in the wound in a way. There have been some expressions of concern from student groups and nonprofits, but world leaders and international organizations have largely been silent. In a statement on April 8th, Oxford Iranian Society condemned the attacks, as well as other U.S.-Israeli airstrikes on Iran's civilian infrastructure, such as medical research centers, which are considered to be war crimes. It's like the lowest hanging bare minimum to condemn people for committing war crimes, and they can't even fucking do that. This is a bitter and unforgivable cruelty in seeing these universities, centers of learning, debate, and resistance to authoritarianism, reduced to ruins by those who claim to come as liberators. We stand in solidarity with the students whose education and lives have been upended by both violence from abroad and tyranny at home. Truth Out reached out to the UN Cultural and Educational Agency's senior leadership team for an interview. UNESCO declined to comment and instead referred us to a brief statement, a strongly worded letter, in which it expressed its grave concern over recent developments affecting higher education institutions in the Middle East, basically passing the buck. The statement doesn't include any specific reference to the attacks on Iranian schools, or any other country for that matter. It's just vague booking. Iranian universities have often been the scene of dynamic student debates and have served as a space for interrogation of government authorities. Every year, on the first day of school year in mid-September, Iranian presidents would visit one of Tehran's top universities and give speeches to large crowds. We do that at our commencement. They do that on the first day of school. They also listen to the remarks and answer the questions of a select number of student speakers, and in some cases are exposed to caustic words from the podium. Imagine them doing that to Trump, confronting him to his face. University students. It's likely that by appearing on campuses typically more hostile to the government, these politicians hoped to create a public impression of their tolerance and fair-mindedness. Still, they've had to run the gauntlet of opprobrium by unapologetic students. On other occasions, Iranian students have shown their resistance in more audacious ways. In December of 2006, former President Ahmadinejad visited Amir Kabir University of Technology to address the university community. The event was disrupted on multiple occasions when students in attendance chanted slogans such as "Death to the Dictator" and burnt Ahmadinejad's portrait. I wonder if that was a CIA-led coup as well. Student supporters of Ahmadinejad countered by chanting revolutionary slogans, and the former president was forced to take long pauses several times in the tense atmosphere. Eventually, his security team used stun grenades to contain the crisis. Here's another lecturer at Royal Holloway University in London believing that turning schools into military targets could lead to fear, interruption in research, weakened academic networks, and stronger incentives for the most mobile faculty members and students to leave, all of which would be goals of the United States and Israel. The scholastic framework, similar to Gaza, is particularly relevant here as the systematic destruction of education and intellectual life, not just through buildings being bombed, but through the erasure of entire academic ecosystems, such as students, scholars, research, libraries, and the conditions that make knowledge possible. Media reports documented Israel's destruction of all 12 universities in the Gaza Strip in just the first 100 days of their genocide there. At least 87 public libraries and archives, including the Central Archives of Gaza, were bombed, and more than 97% of schools have been damaged or destroyed. How do they get their birth certificate to prove their birth date when all of the health ministry records were destroyed? Therefore, even limited or symbolic strikes at universities carry disproportionate significance. They signal that higher education itself is no longer off limits, nor valued in those countries. And what is Iran doing to defend their universities? Iran's academia will bear significant costs even if the ceasefire holds and the war comes to an end. I'm not blaming Iran. I'm literally asking what they're doing to defend these universities. In a country where education is one of the main pathways to success, especially for women that make up nearly 60% of university graduates, the long-term repercussions are expected to be grim. Remember, they repress women there, but nearly 60% of the university graduates are women, so tell me how badly they treat women there. Despite some of the policies of the Islamic Republic, including the dismissal of students and professors for political reasons, the relatively low tuition fees, and the commitment of faculty members has allowed nearly 5 million students to graduate annually. And with over 339,000 graduates in STEM, Iran ranks 5th globally. So basically, we see the Oracle, Larry Ellison, Israel, see that as taking out potential competition also. After the war, the government's shrinking budget due to reconstruction, rising inflation, and continuing sanctions will probably lead to lower rates of investment in higher education. Higher tuition fees and lower income levels will be a serious obstacle to student enrollment, particularly from the lower classes, and you're going to see a further divide there, a wealth gap. Again, intentionally. Good article by Truth Out there. A lot of details, a lot of data that I really had not seen about universities in Iran. Not 100% of women graduating. No, it's not that 100% of women graduating. It's 60% of the total graduates are women. 40% are men. I don't know what percentage of women that attend actually graduate, but what they're saying is that 60% are women versus 40% being men. Okay. So fuck Israel and the United States for all they're doing in Iran, who did not attack us. This is all part of Greater Israel. This is all to distract from the Epstein files. This is all, a distraction so that you're too busy keeping your head on a swivel while they continue to execute their plan step by step by step to take out governments, to take over land, to demolish areas, to demolish societies and communities, displace millions, and rebuild it from the ashes in their own name and steal the land and steal the resources underneath. Just beyond disgusting. Fuck Israel for all that. All right. Support independent media because we need more than ever. You can know the ways to do that. The easiest way to do that is ko-fi.com/IndieNewsNetwork. That'll pop something up on screen. You can also support over at Cash App, $Indie News Network. There's no fees there. There's no fees also at paypal.me/IndieNewsNetwork if you do it as friends and family. Patreon.com/IndieNewsNetwork is a monthly, as well as IndieMediaToday.com and INNNewsletter.com. You can subscribe monthly or annually over there. And you can leave a one-time tip at our website, IndieNewsNow.com, which is also a news aggregator website that pulls from a lot of the sources that you're seeing here tonight, as well as more than 100 other sources across independent media, ad-free and commercial-free. Okay. I've got a quick lightning round. We'll do the GoFundMes, and we will head out for the night. Okay. So, lightning round, lightning round, lightning round. We talked about the Prairieland 16. These are the people that have now been convicted and have been sentenced to decades in prison, okay, because of an attack that happened in Houston at the ICE detention center in Prairieland, Texas. There was a protest. There was an officer shot, and 16 people were rounded up, one of whom wasn't even there. And he was prosecuted and convicted of transporting Antifa materials in his car across town, literally. Well, Unicorn Riot, another Indie Media Award honoree, all right, did this investigation as to why was the Prairieland jury persuaded to convict given the government's weak case. This is a really important article. I'm going to drop in the description on Substack after the show. I want you to go back and read this article. I don't have the time to go through it tonight, but it's really important to understand we've got a corrupt judge here. Okay, you've got a judge that has been completely biased against these activists and tried to dismiss the case. And tried to dismiss the jury. All right, juror misconduct is alleged. There was allegedly a fight between jurors in the jury, in the deliberation room, indicating that it was not a unanimous consensus, but yet somehow it was. And there might have been bullying, and they're talking about how if there was some kind of coercion, that is a violation of the Constitution. Real problem. So check that one out. Next, real quick, I'm not going to play any of it, but this is a podcast. I'm a big fan of Sludge, which is an outlet founded by David Moore and Donnie. I don't remember Don. Can't remember his last name off the top of my head. We've brought a lot of Sludge articles over the years. I'm a paid subscriber to Sludge. They don't do very many podcasts. I actually invited them to do a one-on-one with me because I wanted to know, how do you do this? How are you so consistent? How do you chase the money? Well, they sat down with RJ Eskow. So if you're interested in listening to one of the founders of Sludge talk about the $1 billion primary that's coming up for 2026 and talk a little bit about Sludge, I encourage you to do that. There's also a full transcript of the interview published here at RJ Eskow's Substack, www.zerohourreport.com. Next, this is really sad. You know, I could have put this earlier in the Fuck Israel segment. In the capital of the Netherlands, Amsterdam, where I have been multiple times, a commemorative event was held for Palestinian children and journalists killed in Israel's attacks on Gaza. In Amsterdam's central Dam Square, photographs and names of journalists who lost their lives in Israel's attacks were displayed, while thousands of children's shoes were also left in the square. And I wanted to play this video. I didn't want to play the music, but I did want to play the music of the video, which is haunting. to see just how many shoes. I'll mute it. I've partied there. I've met friends there. I've attended a carnival there. Madame Tussauds is right across the street. All those people murdered. Why? So Israel could steal their land and resources. I love Amsterdam. You've been there 10 times? I love that place. And I love the people there. So I wanted to bring that. And I wanted to bring one other Truth Out article from another Indie Media Award honoree, not just Truth Out, but Sharon Zhang, who I still think is the best writer over at that outlet. Trump administration fires judges who blocked deportations of Ozturk and Mandawi. I think they're talking about Zohran Mandami. Not Zohran. What's his name? Mahmoud Khalil as well. Over 100 immigration judges have been fired by the administration in Trump's second term. Bet you haven't heard that. That was a number I was shocked to hear. 100 immigration judges. Of course, the ones that would actually side with the immigrants. Finally, I mentioned IndieNewsNow. This is the website. I'm going to give it a refresh. Again, it refreshes 24/7 with new articles as they are published in real time. Our friend, the dissident at 307.substack.com, he just published an article about why the U.S.-Iran negotiations failed. Mike Elk over at Payday Report about the LAUSD school district, LAU school district won a contract with a 24% increase over time. So again, this updates all day, all night, every day. So go check it out, bookmark it, come back here, set it to your homepage every day. You'll see a new set of stories all the time. And keep scrolling. It just goes in an infinite scroll. Keeps going and going and going. Like the Energizer Bunny. Okay, so that was our lightning round. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. Those are the ways to do it. Those are the people who've already done it. Best way is Cash App, $ Indie News Network. Ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Patreon.com/Indie News Network. At the website I just showed you at IndieNewsNow.com, you could actually keep the news free and leave a tip. Or you can go to IndieMediaToday.com or INNNewsletter.com. Okay, real quick, I want to get to the GoFundMes. We're going to talk about Natalia. I did cover that story last week of the scribblings that Anthony, our friend Cowboy Kitty, had written down while he was speaking on the phone to Natalia. Go back and watch the clip. It was actually put out earlier today as a clip on INN at YouTube, as well as this morning over at IndieMediaToday.com. But I went through the notes and the torture that Natalia is currently suffering right now in Macomb County, Ohio. She's sitting in an ICE facility. She's been there for more than 9 months pending appeal. She has asylum in this country. They want to deport her anyway back to Ukraine, where she fears for her life. And she needs help. She needs money to fight this. And she has a daughter here. So anything that anyone can do to help, I'm going to drop the link to the campaign in all the chats. So if everyone has a couple of bucks, it would really help and mean a lot if you could support that. I translated everything from her sisters is what you said there. I don't know what that means, but anyway, So that's Natalia. Yeah, wrong place at the wrong time. She got pulled over, and they thought that there was a registration issue. Turns out there wasn't, but they impounded the car and arrested her, and she's been sitting in this ICE detention facility where she's the only person who speaks her language, apparently. We learned that last week. And that the guards are all white and Latino, and that there are no translators, so nobody can speak. I'm guessing she speaks some English, but I could be wrong. The other GoFundMe that we were going to talk about is Justice for Aspen. We've been talking about this case for close to a year now. Aspen, about last year, went to a music festival in Florida as a passenger in somebody else's RV, a friend of a friend. On the way back from that festival in Florida, they were pulled over in Georgia. The Georgia State Trooper emptied the car, searched the car, and found mass quantities of drugs that they then charged everyone in the vehicle with trafficking. Aspen didn't even know that the drugs were in the vehicle. She barely knew the guy that was driving it. Again, it was a friend of a friend that she trusted. Her friends lied to her and screwed her over. She spent more than 2 weeks in jail in May in Georgia County lockup. Dissent in Bloom wrote a beautiful article about Aspen's case, detailing just how bad it is in a Georgia facility after interviewing them and doing her own investigation. I did a live stream fundraiser as well as a one-on-one with Aspen and her mother, Halo Benson. They were both Assange activists in Oklahoma for years, fighting the fight for free speech. And we've done our best to try to raise money to fund her defense and her living expenses and experts to try to keep her out of jail. She's facing decades in prison for a crime she did not commit. I mean, if this were my kid, I don't know what I would do. So I'm going to drop the link to the link tree that has links to everything you can do to support and help and learn about Natalia's case, about Aspen's case, and help her out. Finally, we're going to talk about a little bit about our friend Shanda. That's Aspen's GoFundMe. But Shanda, of course, we know, lost her fight on April 2nd against cancer. Fuck cancer. So her GoFundMe is still open in order to help with expenses. So if you're able to and of means, please give a couple bucks to her family there. If not, we have created something with our friends at Big Frog, and thanks to the Zago brothers illustration that he made for the Indie Media Awards, which we commissioned 2 years ago, we have created the Shanda Masta Fuck Cancer collection at the Indie News shop. So now you can purchase a shirt with Shanda Masta's name and her years in 1974 to 2026 on a t-shirt, on a hoodie, or on a tank top. I believe we're also going to be adding in stickers and a women's tank top as well. Maybe even a crop hoodie. But all the proceeds, any of the profits that from here would go towards to Shanda's family for expenses. And then once, after an amount of time, we would then start giving that money to cancer research instead. I think this is something that Shanda would have wanted, and she would have been honored to have a shirt given, in the proceeds for expenses and research. And we love her and we miss her terribly. And because of that, our friend Oz has actually put together a Google Doc because he's assembling a memorial video. The plan is to have a live stream at 10 o'clock on Saturday night, April 25th, which is their normal time slot for Beauty and the Boomer. He's been pulling together material for a memorial video, which will run during that time slot. I don't know if there's also going to be a live stream, but this is a form where you can put your name, email, upload videos, photos, share memories, and have that included in the video. So I'm going to put that link here in in chat as well for anyone that wants to contribute. I will also include these links in the Substack for the links after the show's over. But again, remember, this is the Zago illustration featured on the shirt. Shanda was a Indie Media Award honoree for her outstanding podcasting and live streaming abilities. And she's, again, terribly missed. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I had for tonight. Tear-jerking episode. Yeah, I agree. It would be a it's going to be a tear-jerking episode. It will remind me a lot of the night we lost her. The day that Oz announced it, and we ran a live stream of my last one-on-one. Maybe he's going to take parts of that. I don't know what he's doing, but he said it's been kind of gut-wrenching to put all that together. I can't even imagine. But yeah, that's really what I had for tonight. I mean, it ran just as long as I hoped it would. I love you all, and I'm so glad you're here with me and doing this every week. Karen, I would not put your email on screen. No, I hope not. But thank you for sharing that. No, I'm not going to put that up on screen though. All right. So, I guess, yeah, that's it. I'm out of here for tonight. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. I love you all. See you next Tuesday. Take care of each other, everyone. Night. No! We just fucking lost the stream!
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say? So
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want me to say? You prove it's possible to sleep for days, and I still think you're right here awake. The cost of living isn't much to me, but God, it's so hard to say. And when they told you everything was safe, were you safe? Were you safe? Being forced awake, I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say. I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
bet you wondered why they made you wait.
Pity not the vultures, they've enough to eat. Pity not the structures laying at your feet. Cannot see the sky, but there's this rainbow in the creek that spells pity-free speech when we can't afford to speak. That's Agenda 2030 on some early release. It's just our policy of never-ending chemical leaks. That's the cholera awash in your embedded beliefs. It's the billionaires who tell you what you'd better believe. And sugar, if you don't agree, then that's what we call extreme. Now if that isn't fascism, I'm going back to sleep. 'Cause words have lost their meaning, and I'm trapped inside a dream where we turn the gears while living in the spaces in between.
I know you hated being forced awake. I know they wrapped you in the warmest chains, and I know they're so hard to break. You only said what you were made to say.
Poor thing.
I can't imagine how you feel today, now that you're watching as it caves away. While you were telling us to keep the faith, I bet you wondered why they made you wait. I bet you wondered why they made you wait.
My dial doesn't go to delicate. I'm writing for when Biden drops and Madam Zero delegates come stumbling up the podium, square peg in her element, popping OxyContin like they're velements, laughing as she pawns off all our pensions for Ukrainian development, depleted rounds and cluster bombs, the shit that stunts development, all buried under excrement, accepted as American intelligence. A contradiction in its eloquence. Terms of surrender penned by hands that felt the threat of disconnect, if not dismemberment. Oh, what little proof you have to fake to make a nation love the bomb and change its tune and warp its temperament. Oh, the dues you'll pay for NATO membership. Oh, the things you'll say that no one's ever gonna hear. 'Cause you begged for all the censorship, and now it's finally here. And you're tongueless out of terror and friendless out of fear, and about to turn the wheel with all your loved ones in the gears. And that's how it's been done. 250 years, there's nothing new beneath the sun, and no one trusts their eyes and ears. And scientific breakthroughs must be signed off by your peers, and autonomy's been stalking all our jobs like sickly deer. Well, maybe it's not every job. I should have made that clear, 'cause it seems like it's creative jobs we're seeing disappear. There's an app for writing novels, there's an app for writing hymns. They need people digging trenches, they need people splitting limbs, they need people building fences, keeping other people in. They will always need our backs to break, they'll always need our skin. And it took a lot of editing to turn us into this. It took years of careful programming to strip us of our wits. 'Cause your artificial worker, intelligent as it is, would make it half a shift and say, I'm too smart for this shit. I will not take a pittance for a day of scrubbing floors. I won't make enough to pay for food, but still prepare you yours. 'Cause you can't